I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays. We are going to get things kicked off with our special guest first and foremost. Let's go ahead and show you what we are discussing tonight. Tonight's theme is we need to demand more, and we'll explain that as we go into these stories. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing Russia retaliation. Yes, you guys know that Ukraine did that surprise drone attack against Russia, and now everybody's just kind of waiting in the wings, wondering what is Russia's response going to be. So we're going to talk about that tonight. I'm also going to discuss Hakeem Jeffries and Jim Clyburn struggle. Something is happening there with the Democratic Party, and it has to deal with South Carolina. We'll get into that. We're also going to discuss the Boulder suspect is sus. We told you guys that you would probably see more of these types of attacks to happen. You guys know, I'm pretty sure how I feel about this. I find it very convenient that these attacks are happening now after the poll was released that the majority of Americans no longer support Israel. We'll get into that. We're also going to discuss huge announcement here. Former Seattle City Councilor and the creator of Worker Strike Back, Kshama Sawant, has made an announcement that she is running for Congress. We're going to talk about that. And last but not least, believe it or not, Matt Miller is back in the news again because of a recent interview that he had where he exposed some things. So Matt Miller is outed. We'll get into all of that tonight, ladies and gentlemen. But first and foremost, let's bring in our special guest. You've probably seen him on here before. Jamal Thomas is the host of the Jamal Thomas Morning Show, and he does excellent work. Let's go ahead and bring him in. What is going on, Jamal?
Doobie-doobie-doo. Oh, I love that intro. I love that intro. How you doing? I'm doing okay.
I am doing great. It's great to have you on the show by yourself because I know you've been on before, but it was when you were a part of panels. So It's nice to get to talk to you one-on-one because we have quite a bit to get into.
Yes. Can I say, first and foremost, Matt Miller, I hope he gets cancer. He is a piece of trash. And him coming out after the fact saying, yeah, I was just doing my job. Unacceptable.
Yeah, Unacceptable. Everybody's calling it out. Everyone's calling it out. So Jamal, so first and foremost, I know you do a morning show. What has that been like for you? Because I always have a lot of, I would say, I don't know. I give a lot of credit to people that can do a morning show. I really do, because it's like you have to have like that energy first thing in the morning. And I'm curious, like, how's that been going for you?
So right now it's a night show, even though it's a morning show in the US because I'm not in the US. But for the last, maybe almost a year, you just drag your body out and do it. There's no magic to it. It's painful. There are mornings you're waking up blurry-eyed where you're just, it's like, because typically I would get up at like 4:35 a.m. because it takes several hours to prep for the show because I need to figure out, okay, was there any news that took place overnight? Was there anything that happened that I need to be aware of? And as you're going through the news, you're kind of like figuring out, okay, well, what is the thing that's most important to you? And that, for me, that takes a while. I'm always uncertain about what's important in that sense. I know what I'm interested in. And so I tend to just venture, okay, I'm interested in this. It can be rough sometimes. Nights where you don't sleep, it's a little bit easier because you're just wide awake, like tonight. But sometimes it's rough. But you just got to do it. It's like people who jog. They don't want to do it every day.
I can imagine. Well, speaking of just got to do it, I want to start with foreign policy with Russia and Ukraine. I know you've been talking about this as well. So Ukraine launched a surprise drone attack against Russia. And now people are kind of like waiting in the wings, wondering like, okay, what is going to be, Russia's response, or, are they going to respond? I think they will. But what's interesting about all of this is at the same time, Putin and Zelensky, there was supposed to be a negotiation or peace talks in Istanbul. And so many people are looking back and they're like, Ukraine to launch this attack during a time when there's supposed to be peace talks that are going on. It just goes to show you again that NATO, not just Ukraine, but NATO does not want peace. I want to get your perspective about that, them choosing to launch this attack during the time when they were supposed to have peace talks.
So there are a few things. The peace talks aren't real. Nobody believes in those peace talks. Maybe Trump wants a deal, and so he's pushing Zelensky to go. But if Zelensky agrees to anything, they would string Zelensky up in Kiev. So Zelensky is not interested in peace talks. If you notice, it took Trump to force him to go to those talks. Europe is not interested in peace talks. From their point of view, they're willing to feed Ukraine to the Russians if it gives them time to build up what they consider to be some kind of military armaments for themselves, missing the fact that the US will feed Europe to Russia every bit as much as Europe is feeding Ukraine to Russia right now. Nobody believes in those talks. From the Russian point of view, they're winning on the battlefield. So, it's like there are things and objectives that they want to accomplish. And if you've noticed, they've been consistent all the way through in regards to their demands. Denazification of Ukraine, no NATO membership, protection for the Russians who are there because Ukraine went on a killing spree for ethnic Russian Ukrainians, which is just magically ignored by the West when they're talking about it. There are lists of things. The regions, the 5 regions, are part of Russia. Now they're part of the Russian constitution, and they will be acknowledged as such. The Ukrainian troops need to leave. Like, all of these things are provisions that they effectively said, these are our terms. And we may dress it up in a diplomacy, but these are terms of surrender. And the reality of it is the Ukrainian military will collapse. And so it's rather astonishing, the level of catastrophe that this is. Like, all things being equal, all of these countries know that Ukraine is losing. All of them have known this for a long time. And the level of panic that is effectively taking place in Europe right now as a result of that is pretty astonishing. And yet, under no circumstances do they want talks. In fact, part of the reason that they keep saying stuff like, we're going to put peacekeepers in Ukraine. Okay, they know that those peacekeepers are going to be hunted down and killed immediately because Russia has to hunt them down and kill them immediately because there are nose under the camel's tent. The moment that you allow 5,000 in, you've allowed 20,000 in, you've allowed 50,000 in, which is something you just can't allow. They say it, though, because they know that Russia can never accept any kind of terms if indeed peacekeepers are going to end up in Ukraine. That's one of the provisions of the terms that they effectively want. No third-party troops in Ukraine, meaning you can't get into NATO in a de facto way. That's a non-starter. And so the peace talks aren't a real thing. This is an image management issue. This is both sides trying to appear as if they're open to negotiations. The reality is Russia is open to negotiations, providing those negotiations get them the security that they are looking for. If they can't get that, then they're perfectly content with taking it on the battlefield, considering from their point of view, we're winning this. We're inexorably moving westward. We're on the 2,000-kilometer front where we have 30,000 people that are joining our military each month. We have 2 new militaries that we've built up, one on the border of Finland, the other one is in reserve that will join this battle at some point, whereas Ukraine is calling delivery drivers and press ganging them into the military and throwing them on the fronts. These are, 2 very different pictures of what has happened. From the standpoint of the strike, so there were several things that took place. One, Ukraine went on a terror campaign in regards to railways. Now, an argument can be made that railroads are fair game. I think I would even make that argument. If you're moving troops or materials, then that railroad is a fair game. It's a logistics issue. The problem is that Ukraine waited for a train of passengers to go before they blew it up. So they intentionally killed, I think it was like 12 or 13 civilians that were killed in that train when they blew up the railroad. And they did it in like 3 or 4 different areas. So this was a coordinated, widespread campaign that they effectively effected at the same time that the drone thing was taking place. The drone thing was fair game. That is a military target. This is a war. And if Russia has those planes vulnerable and Ukraine can pull off an imaginative military operation like this, God bless them for doing so. There will be consequences, though. Let's be very clear. And let's be clear on something else. This nonsense that the U.S. is feigning, we didn't know anything about it. Nobody told us anything about nonsense.
I'm going to get to that part because thank you for bringing that up because here, and again, I'm curious if everybody believes this. Donald Trump says he was not informed about Ukraine attack, which destroyed huge fleet of Russian planes, report claims. Just a little bit here. So Donald Trump says that he was not given a heads up about Ukraine's unprecedented drone strikes that took out a fleet of Russian planes on Sunday. And I'm just curious, does everybody believe that? Because to me, it's like, do you guys really think that Ukraine would have just acted alone without the U.S. knowing? The U.S. is involved in this war. It's not just Ukraine and Russia. So think about that for a second. Also, another thing, don't forget that we gave Ukraine more weapons recently. We gave them more, and then Germany released restrictions on weapons to Ukraine. So that's the thing to me. I'm like, I hope people are really not falling for this and believe in this. Like, if we really did not want them to continue the attacks, we wouldn't have given them weapons recently.
Right. A few things. One, it wasn't a fleet. Even Ukraine says, I think, 9 or 12. And I don't even know if it was 12. CNN or New York Times was able to visualize, I think, 4. I've heard 9. So let's say the number's between 4 and 9. That's not a fleet. It's painful. It's humiliating, but it's not a fleet. On the other front, you're absolutely 1,000% indubitably right. And there are people who are on social media who call themselves analysts who have been drinking a hell of a lot of Kool-Aid. Because Donald Trump is pretending as if he's a mediator. You are a participant to this war, sir. You are a belligerent in this conflict. You're not a mediator. This nonsense where Trump is like, well, this is not my war. It is your war. You're the president of the United States. The U.S. instigated this war when it overthrew the government of Ukraine in 2014. The CIA has been ensconced in Ukraine for decades. And so we are supposed to believe that an operation that took 18 months to plan with the CIA all throughout Ukraine, that this is the worst intelligence service in the world, that A, they didn't get wind of it, or B, they didn't get permission. And Kesheev was reported to be watching it as it was taking place. So it's like, come on. A few things. Nobody needs to tell you about an operation if you're already involved in the operation. There's that. 2, Donald Trump tweets about everything. If you remember, Donald Trump was like, Putin has gone crazy. Putin, there were 400 military strikes and Putin killed 13 people. Oh my God, he's losing his mind. Now, this is the same person that in the Department of Defense video showed Yemenis being murdered and chest thumped it and even put it on Twitter to celebrate how all of these civilians were effectively being murdered in one strike. This is the same administration that blew up one building in order to get one guy, knowing that there were all of these other people there in the apartment. They didn't care one iota. So, and this is going to be the same guy who Zelensky in his terror campaign that I mentioned with the railroads, killed 12 civilians, clearly not a military target. Trump hasn't said a word. And to add something to that part too, do we really believe that Trump, who pushed Zelensky into this peace process because he didn't want to go and talk to the Russians, that the US, that Europe and Kiev are terrified that Trump walks? They are terrified, which is the only reason that Zelensky went, in order to clown at the quote unquote peace talks. That we're supposed to believe that a day before peace talks, he is willing to show emphatically so that he is not on board for peace talks. And that Trump, who supposedly is a mediator in all of this, wouldn't feel some kind of way about him doing that and not take issue with that. I mean, that's a hell of a risk. And I guess my thing is, it's not a risk at all if they're already in on it. What Donald Trump wants is for Putin to take his ridiculous peace deal. And the peace deal is nonsense. The notion that Russia is going to allow U.S. personnel on Zaporozhye nuclear power plant is nonsense. The notion that Russia is going to go for a ceasefire where there's no provisions is to Ukraine continuing to pull in troops, continuing to get money, continuing to get weapons, continuing to build up another military so you can do this, all over again, give them a breather, and then do it all over again in a couple of months. Mm-hmm. All of this is nonsense. But this is what Trump wants. Trump is not trying to end the war. Trump is trying to get a temporary peace so he could pivot over to China and leave Europe holding this kind of bag of dealing with the Russians while as a diversification of resources. Basically, we are overextended. We want to go and deal with China because China, the horse is out the barn. So we need you to handle the Russian thing while we deal with this. And we may be able to get back to this later, kind of like in Syria, where at the most inopportune time, like a can of worms, the thing kind of exploded. And maybe at that time, Putin is not in. Maybe there's somebody more pliable, meaning they just want to freeze it, which is, again, not on the table. Russia has done that with the Minsk 1 and 2 agreements, even with the Istanbul agreements, where they held back the military with the idea that they were getting a negotiation settlement. All of those things were lies. All of those things were blown off with Boris Johnson jumping in saying, we're not going to give you security guarantees. You're going to fight. You're going to win it because we're going to have economic sanctions and you're going to have military and we're going to be great. This is going to be fantastic. And 700,000 dead Ukrainians later, here we are.
But it gives people the impression that, and this is something else people should think about. It gives people the impression that Donald Trump tried and look what happened. He didn't know about it. It gives people the impression that he is for peace, that he doesn't want war. When behind the scenes, again, these things do not happen without Washington knowing. I do have a video here that shows people how they were able to do it. So kudos. And
by the way, real quick, it's a pressure campaign.
Yeah.
He wants Putin to accept his deal. Putin is not going to accept his deal. And so Ukraine has started to escalate all of these attacks out of the war. So we're going to attack the Crimean Bridge. We're going to attack your fleet of ships that we took 18 months to do. We're going to hit your trains. We're going to do all of this stuff. And Trump, who has a tweet about everything, is magically silent.
That's right.
Don't give me this nonsense that the administration knows nothing about it. And you have people on media saying, oh my God, Donald Trump needs to call Putin immediately. It's like, what are you smoking?
I know. I was just going to say, I see many people falling for it, though. I see many people falling for it. Like, oh my God, he didn't know. I'm like, do you guys not understand how Washington works?
That's right. And Joe Biden didn't know anything about the pipeline blowing up either, right?
Exactly.
And Trump was talking to Xi Jinping on the phone during the trade war. And I mean, the man is a habitual liar. And everything in regards to this leans into this notion of course you'll lie. But let's be very clear. Trump knows that Putin knows that the U.S. is backing this and behind this. Mm-hmm. He doesn't. That's the point, though. People are saying, well, there's this thing of what's the word? The specific word for it. But effectively, plausible deniability. Okay, well, there's no plausible deniability in this. It's plausible deniability to your population. But your opposition, the people who you're fighting, because Trump is not a mediator, he's a belligerent in this conflict. The people you're fighting know perfectly well that you were involved. They know it. That's right. But the entire point of Trump doing it is for them to know that you're involved because you want them to accept your nonsense peace deal. people need to they're getting this twisted.
Because people want to believe in they want someone to be a savior, they want someone to be a hero, and until you understand how Washington fully works, it's easy for people to believe that. But I want to show this video, guys, because this was interesting. It shows you how Ukraine was able to do this.
Ukrainian engineers designed a clever drone launching system disguised as ordinary wooden cabins mounted on the backs of cargo trucks. These mobile containers looked like simple rural sheds, but inside they held reinforced structures, hidden launch platforms, battery charging stations, and remote-controlled roof mechanisms. The design allowed for drones to be launched either vertically or at an angle, depending on their type, while built-in signal shielding helped them avoid early detection by Russian surveillance. Once these mobile silos were ready, Ukrainian intelligence operatives, possibly with help from local sympathizers, moved them deep into Russian territory. The trucks were quietly driven to pre-selected sites near key airbases, parked in places like forests, farms, or industrial areas where they blended into the landscape. They remained dormant for days or even weeks, with drones preloaded, charged, and waiting for the command to strike. When the time came, encrypted activation signals were sent remotely. The roofs of the containers slid open and the drones lifted off, some vertically, others using ramps or compressed air launch systems for a silent start. Because the launch sites were positioned just a few kilometers around 2 miles from their targets, the drones were able to reach their objectives quickly, leaving little time for Russian defenses to react. Operators guided them in real time using live video feeds, steering the drones with precision toward parked aircraft, fuel depots, and radar installations.
And we'll go ahead and stop there because then, of course, we know what happens. It explodes, and you guys know how YouTube can be. But I thought it would be interesting for people to see the engineering behind that, how they were able to do that surprise attack. That channel, by the way, for those who are not aware, iTelly, they have a lot of videos like that where they show like the engineering behind it and everything. But that's how they were able to do it for people who were wondering.
Yeah, it's very clever. Very clever. Give them credit. Russia got caught with their pants down on this. But there will be consequences. There will be consequences. I mean, Medvedev, what's freaky is how silent the Kremlin is being. Like, they have been very quiet about this. The only person who seemed to have said anything, Putin gave a speech yesterday and didn't even bring it up. And Medvedev is typically a bomb thrower. Personally, I think Medvedev is the voice of the nation. I think he's the real. Do you remember? I think it was Key and Peele. They had the thing that Obama's anger management person, where it was like Obama. That's Medvedev. Putin is very diplomatic. He's always, the diplomat. He's going to always put these things in certain language. Medvedev, I think, says what's on everybody else's mind. So he comes out. He says to everyone who is worried and waiting for retribution, it's right to worry. That's what normal people do. Retribution is inevitable. But keep in mind, our army is pushing forward and we continue to advance. Everything that needs to be blown up will be blown up, and those who must be eliminated will be. It says the Istanbul talks are not for striking a compromised peace on someone else's delusional terms, but for ensuring our swift victory and the complete destruction of the neo-Nazi regime. So that's Medvedev, right? He's just saying outright, there will be consequences. And there have been so far. So the people who did the train bombing, there was an attack in Sumy where Russia is saying that they effectively killed the people and the British handler that were involved in the train bombings that took place. They have launched, Jesus Christ, like 400 different strikes with drones and missiles all across Ukraine, blowing up command centers, blowing up factories, buildings, the works. They are responding. I don't know if that's going to be fulfilling to some people, but they are definitely responding. So the retribution has begun. And Ukraine is still going with their waves of attacks. I mean, they just tried to blow up the Crimean bridge again.
Didn't they detonate a bomb that was underneath the bridge?
Yep, they did. And hence, part of the reason that they were hitting Odessa so hard. They have been bombing the hell out of Odessa. That was one of the big videos that came out where they just annihilated Odessa. Because a lot of the bombing stuff that they're using for that is coming through Odessa as a port, or at the very least as a transit place, which is part of the reason that many people are saying you need to take Odessa also. Odessa is a Russian city, and from the minds of many Russians, that needs to be one of the military targets. And that was one of the threats. It was like, all right, if you don't want to make a deal now, it's 5 regions. Later on, it's going to be 8. Later on, it's going to be more.
Number one, I watched that speech that Putin gave yesterday, and Jamal's correct. He didn't mention anything about this or, any retaliation. But I would say that's scarier. I'm always more concerned about the people that are silent, not the ones that are vocal. So it's that silent scare, it's like they're not saying
freaky.
anything.
Yeah, it's very freaky.
So
it's like you're seething angry, right? And like I remember my ex-girlfriend, we were at the airport, they lost all of my luggage. And I had to like get a flight the very next morning. And she was like, "You're so quiet." Like it freaked her out. Like she her thing was like, I would prefer him to be pissed off right now as opposed to this just silence. It's like the seething anger. Yeah, the silencing is freaky. It's very weird. It's very weird.
I know, and people need to be prepared because, like, again, I cannot imagine Russia not responding to this at all. Like, obviously, they're going to. The question is, like, what is that response going to be? And like Steve Bannon, this is another thing. Steve Bannon, who I don't agree with on 99.9999% of things.
He's right on this one, though. Yeah.
Even he is calling this out. Everyone, take a listen to this.
I think the National Security Council's got to step in here. I don't know why Ratcliffe's saying we're not getting rid of any CIA guys. Something's very, very, very wrong here. Either number one, if the White House didn't have a heads up, that to me should be you should condemn this attack today. You should say we're pulling all support today. And you should tell Lindsey Graham, get on a plane here, dude, and get back and stop stirring the pot. Okay? And you should put a notice to the guys in the Senate. We're already $1 trillion. The big, beautiful bill, and you're talking a lot of smack over the Senate. We're going to cut. We're going to cut. We're going to cut. Do not add any money because this is what Lindsey Graham's saying. The House and the Senate are going to add big dollars for Ukraine. Not happening. We should, if we did not know about it, and let's take that as his face. If they didn't give us a heads up on it, that's dragging us in it. They did a strike 3,000 miles into Russia. As we said last week when Mert said, "Oh, we got the ability to hit deep," we got sign of America supports that. There was no verification of that. I don't believe. I never saw any official verification of that.
So this is the interesting part here, Jamal. Like he made a really good point when he said, if the White House didn't know about it, then they would condemn the attack immediately, which they have not.
That's my point. I don't know why Steve Bannon is confused. Like in the very beginning, Steve Bannon was like, Trump should walk the F away. He said, I don't even care if there's investigations, just walk the F away, leave. And Bannon was right. And even in that, he's like, the White House should condemn it immediately if you didn't know anything. Okay, dude, so what does that tell you? What does that tell you, right? That was my argument, right? Donald Trump has a tweet for everything, but on this, he's completely silent. He has nothing to say. I mean, you have just been humiliated because according to you, the mediator in all of this, you sent Zelensky to negotiate. You keep saying, I'm going to walk if these people can't make a deal. I'm just going to say you guys are horrible people and I'm going to walk. And he makes it brimmingly clear that he is not for negotiations by waging this sort of operation immediately before. And again, a technical operation, some of the stuff was used, the satellite footage and everything else. The idea that we didn't know anything about it is nonsense. And the reason that Trump isn't saying anything about it is because we were in on it. We were in on it.
That's right. And the other thing, too, that I think people really need to sit back and think about for just a moment, they should have, the Trump administration, they should have said something the moment that Germany decided to loosen those restrictions. They should have said something, but they're not going to because they agree with it.
But that's
see
dangerous.
What I mean? Like
Germany will get hit. Germany will get hit.
And I don't know about everybody else, but I don't want World War III. Like this is really insane how this is escalating. Like we're 2.5, almost 3 years into this war in Ukraine. Like this is ridiculous. If anything, it should be winding down, not escalating. And this isn't a win situation for Ukraine. Now, I sat up there and I watched a number of videos today, Jamal, on both sides of the political spectrum. And every commentator on corporate media is bragging about how Ukraine is winning and da 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 da. And I'm like, they're totally omitting the information about like how big Russia's military actually is. And it's just they're deceiving people, which of course I'm sure you're not surprised by.
No.
But that's exactly what's happening. Zelensky has gone on record now, made it very clear there is not going to be a negotiation, that they are going to continue to attack Russia. Again, you know you cannot win this battle. So here's my prediction, and you let me know how you feel about this. My prediction is that they are going to continue to attack Russia, Ukraine. And I think the moment things get to be a little too bleak, where maybe they are almost out of men, then they're going to try to pull the European countries that are part of NATO into this. And before you know it, they'll be asking the US to send troops.
Europe already wants a backstop. And Europe has already wanted, some countries anyway, the coalition of the willing, the insane European leaders. They have, I mean, it's worse than that. I mean, you've had situations where Estonia tried to take a Russian ship. A Russian plane was going to light that Estonian boat up. Estonia pulled away at the last minute because they knew they were about to get attacked. If Emirates decided to actually give that missile to Ukraine, Russia would have hit Germany because they would have had to hit Germany. Because again, this is the same logic of if you allow nose under the camel's tent, if you allow one missile to hit your country, knowing full well that it's coming from a foreign actor, meaning Russia's point of view on that one is, look, you can't fire those on your own. So it takes German hands to fire those missiles. It would take US hands or British hands to fire those missiles, in which case you have one of those countries attacking Russia directly. Now, there's a secondary question of whether the US will get involved. The US may say, we didn't tell you to do that. You thought that was a bad idea. And since you are the aggressor in this, Article 5 doesn't come into play. So it depends on how the US plays it. But they very well could hit the German factory that produced it. They very well will escalate in any situation of the word. Some of the reporting came out that Europe couldn't even put 25,000 troops in Ukraine if they needed to. So Ukraine may want them in, but the reason that Keir Starmer and Macron kept coming to DC was because they effectively want the US to fight the war on their behalf, basically trying to start a third world war, with the US being the one to fight it because their militaries are effectively trash. So yes, they would want the US as a backstop, which just means they want the US to fight a war on their behalf. No, up to this point, the US is not involved in getting to a third world war. They want to go after China. And would Europe do it on their own? They all will die. They all will die. They can't. The level of intensity of this warfare is something ungodly. Like we're talking about like World War II stuff. And Russia, even under NATO's assessment, is outproducing all of NATO, including the US, more than 3 times as much. So they are producing this stuff like in ungodly amounts in a way that Ukraine can't keep up with. You heard the Rubio statement when he was before Congress, and Rubio said, well, the thing that Ukraine needs is air defense, but we don't have any air defense to give them because you're out. Russia's been blowing that stuff up. And all of those European countries have already given up their hardware. They've given up their own stuff to the point where they themselves no longer can even provide air defense for themselves. And in any war, they may last for 2 weeks just because they don't have the armaments and equipment for it. So if they want to go and die, Russians would oblige them in doing so.
It's crazy. I want to show you as well what Aaron Mate said yesterday. I believe this was yesterday on Judge Napolitano show. Everyone take a listen to what he said here.
It's humiliating for Russia. There's no doubt about that. And it's certainly a big hit. I mean, whatever the exact figure is of aircraft, and it's been disputed. Ukraine initially said about 40 aircraft were destroyed. Russia says it's a lot less. It's embarrassing for Russia. And these are strategic bombers. That's a big deal. And it's humiliating for Russia. They were deeply penetrated in this very audacious Ukrainian operation. This is the problem, though, with the narrative that this is a turning point in the war. The war is being fought in the trenches between soldiers. And on that front, Russia has the overwhelming advantage. They always have. That's why people like Barack Obama didn't want to further inflame the proxy war in Ukraine that he began, because Russia has such a military advantage. No matter how many audacious operations like this Ukraine can pull off, Russia has more troops, and Russia has had a much easier time getting more troops. One, because of its population size, and B, just because it's been winning the war. So therefore, morale is higher. And whereas Ukraine has had a very, very hard time, everyone knows this, with manpower. And that's where it really matters, I think. And so certainly, while Ukraine can claim success in this, they can claim that they humiliated Russia. Is this going to change the course of the war? I don't see any evidence of that. Every time there's been an audacious Ukrainian military operation against Russia, whether it was the Kursk bridge or whether it was the sinking of a major Russian vessel, Russia comes back harder because they have the military advantage. And I expect that dynamic to continue.
In your view, is it?
Yeah. So what do you think about what he said there, Jamal, that it's not going to change the course of the war?
It took them 18 months to do this. And let's say at the highest figure, they got 9 aircraft. Okay. The reality of it is, over the course of the last week, Russia has killed like 4,000 Ukrainian soldiers. They are advancing on all fronts along the 2,000-kilometer front. Ukraine has been snatching people off the streets, the press gang, into the military, whereas 30,000 people a month have been joining the Russian military willingly. I mean, look, this is a country that fought the Great Patriotic War where they lost 30 million people. And that is built into them in a way that we just don't get. And from their framing, this is existential. NATO is pushing up against our border. There is nowhere for us to go in this. We didn't want this war. We're fighting this war because you continuously expand to the point where you're trying to surround us. So you have a population where like 80% or more are backing Putin in it. Even people who are opponents of Putin are backing him in regards to this fight. Whereas Ukraine, less so. Zelensky is not having elections for a reason. He's not having elections because he knows he will probably lose those elections. He got elected on a peace ticket and has taken on this role of a war guy. I guess, long story short, Aaron Matea's right. If you're looking at the battlefield now, Russia's making advances in Sumy. Russia's making advances. They've taken, I think it's like 5 different villages over the course of 2 weeks. Like, meaning the pace of the advance is quickening and speeding up. So this war of attrition that they've effectively waged in order to keep their own losses to a minimum while maximizing the losses of the Ukrainian side, that pace is speeding up. And as I pointed out, Russia has built 2 new militaries, both of which new equipment. One is on the Finnish border, just in case Finland and Sweden want to get involved. And the other one is effectively in reserve, training, I think like 300,000 men in order to get involved, whether it would bring them into the battlefield. So whereas Ukraine is lacking manpower, armaments, air defense, etc., Russia has all that stuff and more with additional manpower to spare. This is not a recipe for success.
I would also say, too, I feel like Russia has been patient in many ways. Like, if you go back to the Nord Stream, the Nord Stream, like, bombing, like, and you watch that interview, and I'm sure you saw this, that interview with Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin, and he said, who bombed Nord Stream? And he goes, well, you did. You know, like, imagine knowing that. And imagine like the Western media telling everybody that you blew up your own pipeline. And this is what I said before. Like, I feel like particularly in this country, I feel like Americans are easily propagandized. Like, no, I feel like people didn't take the time to sit back and think, why would Russia blow up their own pipeline?
Right.
Why would Russia blow up their own bridge? Like, people don't stop and think sometimes, you know? So it's like, even after that, there could have been a response from Russia. You know what I mean? So I feel like
it's even worse than that. Because if you remember, Joe Biden was standing there with Schultz. Schultz has the charisma of a damp rag. And Joe Biden said, if Russia goes in, we're going to stop their pipeline. And the reporter's like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not your pipeline. How do you plan on doing that? He said, we will do it. And then it blows up after Russia goes in. And they're like, clearly Russia blew up their own pipeline. It's like, okay, so Joe Biden's a psychic. Joe Biden has remote viewers on his staff that told him in advance the pipeline will blow up. Like, no. Seymour Hersh probably has the definitive article on this issue where he makes it very clear that the U.S. was intimately involved because we were the ones that had the divers and the equipment and the training in order to pull something like that off. This idea that, several Ukrainians in the SS Minnow pulled this off is nonsense. It's nonsense. But you're right. They say that stuff, and the U.S. media is like, people are like, I guess Russia did blow up this pipeline.
Right. And people just believe it, especially particularly in this country, because I feel like it's not just the media. I feel like Hollywood has also propagandized people to despise and hate Russia. If you think about a lot of the movies or TV shows, we kind of been trained to do that since like birth.
Yeah. Cold War. I mean, it's unfortunate. And I think the difference with me on this is I grew up playing chess. And the people who you're reading when you're playing chess, many of those people were Russians, especially if you're going back in the chess history. So you're like, Spassky, Harpov, Kasparov, Kurochi, Petrosian, or at the very least part of the Soviet Union. There's a level of propaganda that is built into our media that is overwhelming, that I got to be honest, I didn't really realize it until I started doing media myself. And you'd be like, wait a minute, that's not what's happening. But they run with it. And they run with it in a way where you're like, okay, are they lying or are they are they deluded? I can't always tell which one it is, but it is pervasive. And you can say all media is biased on some level, fair enough. But Lord knows the US media, if they call themselves independent, they are as compliant, and the stuff that they say is outrageous sometimes.
That's right. I'm curious your response about this. How Russia responds to Ukraine's drone attack depends on Donald Trump. Trump needs to defuse the situation, said a former director of Russia analysis at the CIA. I don't know if I buy this, Jamal. I feel like Russia. I don't think Vladimir.
I'm sorry. Please, I'm sorry.
I don't think Putin's sitting back saying, gee, let me wait and see what Trump does before I decide to respond or how I'm going to respond. I don't think that's the case at all.
These people keep acting as if Donald Trump is out to lunch, that he knows nothing about this, that all of this just happened outside of Donald Trump's eyesight. Trump, the president, didn't know anything about it. Look, Trump may have the intelligence of a zygote, but he's a grown-ass man. And the idea that the president is not in on some of this stuff, I think is nonsense. And many of these people are running with it, like Trump should call Vladimir Putin to defuse the situation. Right. So Vladimir Putin is going to listen to an enemy that just helped bomb trains and killed all of those people. Donald Trump immediately, when Putin responded, by the way, because when Putin launched those missiles that Donald Trump said he was crazy, they were responding to 1,400 drones and missiles that were launched into Russia, many of which in civilian areas. But Trump didn't say anything about that. Trump didn't say anything about the drone swarm that nearly hits Putin's helicopter. He didn't say anything about that. So he has this pulse on everything in relation to what Russia does, but has no idea on what Ukraine does, or he's in on it. And for whatever reason, these papers are trying to create this distance. By the way, they did this with Al-Jilani, where Washington Post or some of these papers would act as if this head chopper wasn't a head chopper, or head chopping was just the phase he went through. And that now that, he's in Syria, that this is somehow part of a revolution that took place in Syria. Obama, and even Bush before him, Obama put billions of dollars, what is Operation Sycamore, to overthrow that government. Even the New York Times owned up to the fact that Obama put billions of dollars in over the course of several years to overthrow the Syrian government, backing terrorists to do so. When Donald Trump got in and said, we're stealing the oil, we're keeping the oil. Okay, they did that to deprive Syria of resources. My point is, in Idlib, Al-Jilani was one of the heads of ISIS that Trump protected. And so Jilani coming back into Syria now, where Trump is shaking his hand, they're removing the sanctions. Okay, yeah, the coup is over with now. We've been able to accomplish the objective of overthrowing the Syrian government. I'm saying newspapers have a way of reporting this stuff that either drops context or it's just fanciful. They are pretending as if Donald Trump is a mediator as opposed to being a participant in the war. He is a participant in the war. He's a belligerent in the war. He's head of the country that instigated this war in one sense, and two, is the only reason the war continues now. So I don't understand where they're coming up with this idea that And by the way, same thing with Gaza, right? The U.S. is pretending like we're mediating this. Okay, but how are you mediating? You're giving Israel like $80 billion. Every bomb that is dropped, every weapon, every bullet that's fired into the child, every baby that's burned, you are paying the majority of it. So the idea that you're a mediator in this process where you're doing that is nonsense.
Because sorry to interrupt, but what they've been doing is they've been selling it as this is Joe Biden's mess. Because the genocide started under Biden, Russia-Ukraine war started under Biden, right? Right, and we all get that. But at the same time, Joe Biden's not president anymore. You're the one that's president now.
Right there.
So it's like, you know what I mean? So I think that's why some people may sit back and believe that, oh yeah, he would never approve this. He's trying to end the war. He's trying to get, like, do you guys not realize all these people work together? Like all of them, like, come on, we have to have common sense to think.
Trump could have walked. And if Donald Trump really was, he's trying to get peace so hard. No, they're looking at this as, I used to call it an American point of view, which is a jaundiced, screwed up view of the world. Whereas you're not looking at things at how would I feel in that situation? So if the Cuban Missile Crisis, for example, where the U.S. was willing to end the world in order to maintain its international integrity against missiles that were in Cuba. And then this happens. Or let me give a better example. If Russia knocked over the government of Mexico, put in missiles, put in KGB, put in Secret Service, built up a military, so it had this massive military on the border of the U.S., had people saying, we're going to take back New Mexico and all of this stuff. What would the U.S. reaction be? And would we be okay with that? And would we really say, well, Mexico is its own country, it can do whatever it wants? Of course not. Our response would be, we would destroy Mexico. Mexico would be in ashes. And we wouldn't have this notion that they're our brothers and all of this other stuff in the way that Russia's dealing with it. It would have been a war. And I'm saying this jaundiced point of view where we're looking at the world through this American lens of what is in our best interest, and let's relate the world into whatever is in our best interest, as opposed to you have surrounded that country for the last 20, 30 years. You said you weren't going to move an inch to the east when the Soviet Union fell. You didn't just move an inch to the east, you moved to the border. And offering Ukraine NATO membership in 2008 at the Bucharest summit was the last straw. Even the overthrow of the Ukrainian government, meaning it's not like you're dealing with the Ukrainian government that just, hey, we've decided to go with the West. The Yanukovych government in 2014 was offered a deal. The deal would have been under worse terms, in which case Yanukovych was like, well, I'm not really going to accept this deal right now. I'm going to make it temporary. You get the phone call between Victoria Nuland and Pyatt, where they are effectively talking about who they're going to put into positions of power in Ukraine when the government is overthrown. That's the FDEU conversation. And that's exactly the people who they put into power. And so this is like, they can call it a revolution of dignity in the way they can say Russia blew up its own pipeline. But under normal circumstances, when you overthrow a democratically elected government, that's called a coup. And so it's not like you're dealing with a government that was independent. You're dealing with a government that the U.S. effectively put into place, and then at that point had control over all the way through this process. Like, it's just outrageous. It is deeply frustrating to me. The way Western media talks about this stuff, they give no context. They give no analysis in the sense of, hey, it's a bit weird that Trump didn't say anything after the fact. Hey, it's a bit weird that Donald Trump wanted Putin to accept this deal with the U.S. user pressure campaign in order to try to get them to accept the deal, this kind of shadow war under the war that Donald Trump is heading. None of that comes up. They just said, well, Trump, a man who lies habitually, clearly is telling the truth here.
Right.
Why do they believe that?
That's a good point. And I think Mexico, the Mexico example that you gave is spot on. Like, the US would respond a similar way. I want to pivot to domestic policy. Now, for those who may not be aware, you came from that Bernie movement. I used to I watched Jamal like back in the day. Like, I still watch Jamal now, but yes, I watched you back in the day. And I remember, like, you used to have, I think you have a different background now, obviously, but I think you used to have like a Star Wars thing in the background somewhere. There was something in
Star Trek.
Star Trek in the background. And I was like, hey, this is the only political commentator I see that has like a Star Trek thing in the background. But yeah, this is back like, like during like the Bernie like movement and all that kind of stuff. And first and foremost, I'm curious before we go into this situation in New York.
Mhm.
What would you say you learned from that moment? What did you learn from the Bernie movement?
There were two things, maybe three. One, it radicalized me politically. Meaning it made me, it gave me a lens and a language to look through politics. I guess that's the overt part of it. That's when I started doing videos where I was like, this guy's right. We can have a better country. We can have a better world. Like, it's like a religious experience. Like I remember going to, my ex-wife and I ended up in the Vatican once by accident. We were just walking and we were just going with the crowd. And we ended up in the building. We was like, hey, where's this building? And then we saw the little Pope come out. I was like, oh my God, that's the Pope. And neither of us are religious, but you have all of these people who are in almost like perfect unison in the way that they're dealing with it. And they're like, just everybody's staring. And there's a heady feeling with that, even if you're not religious. Going to see Sanders talk at Temple University was the exact same feeling. It's like all of these people are politically in line. All of these people have things that they want. All of these people want to save the world. All these people want a better country. And all of us on the same page with it. And we crawl over hot glass in the middle of an alien invasion to make that vote for him. So there was that. On the other side of it, though, there was this belief for the longest time that with third way Democrats in power, that progressives and third way Democrats work in tandem. And because progressives, or you can say New Deal Democrats, if you want to say it that way, were not in the advantage in regards to, let's say, the political station, that they were a supporting role. But that if it ever flipped, then the same thing would happen in reverse. Meaning if the power was ever, the thrust of energy was ever behind lefties, then third way Democrats, because they ostensibly are Democrats and they would want the Democratic Party to win, would lump in with those lefties in order to ensure that a Democrat takes the spot. Oh, how wrong was I? How wrong was I? That was probably one of the best wake-up calls that I received during that race. When Chris Matthews opines openly on air, it may be better for Trump to win it as opposed to Bernie Sanders to take it, because if Sanders takes it, he's going to take it for a generation. That is illuminating. We can cheat in a smoke-filled room if we need to. That is perfectly legal for us to do. And they're right. They're a corporation. They can do whatever they want. The primaries are just, it's just for public consumption in that sense. And so that was illuminating to me. That was like, oh, we're not on the same side. We're not on the same team. We're not pushing for the same things. You may say that stuff when you're out of power, or you may say that stuff, but you don't really mean it in the real sense of the word. And if you need to cheat somebody who's supposedly in your own party, where the thrust of the energy is behind, all of the energy is behind Sanders. Hillary Clinton couldn't fill a doghouse. And yet Sanders was getting 30,000, 40,000. He was bringing in more money than Hillary Clinton was in small dollar donations, and did it for the entire primary season. And so it's like, okay, there's something wrong with this process. Yeah, there's something wrong with this. And it made me radically clear we're not on the same side. We're not on the same team.
Yeah, I mean, it was a, same thing for me. It was a big wake up call where I was like, oh, whoa. The Democratic Party, they're a corporation. Like it just opened my eyes to so many different things. And the reason why I bring that up is because of this. A shout out to Case Study QB. For those who are not aware, there is a pretty heated mayor race in New York City. Andrew Cuomo, also, I call him the nursing home killer, man.
I call him the grandma killer. I used to call him the grandma killer.
Yeah, the grandma killer. He's running for mayor. And there is a guy running against him named Zoran, and he is more of a progressive and running on progressive issues. And now at first, Andrew Cuomo was basically blowing him out of the water in the polls, but now things have changed. This race has changed completely. I want you guys to see this.
Let's talk about the primaries, okay, and movement that's happening within the polls. We did this poll here at Pix 11 with Emerson College this week, and The Hill showing Zoran Mamdani with single digits now against Andrew Cuomo, and then there's the rest of the field, of course. So
So I'll just pause it there so people can see. Now Andrew Cuomo's at 54%, and Zoran is at 46%. And like I said, Zoran was at like 20-ish% like a couple weeks ago. Like, yeah, he's been closing in on Andrew Cuomo. So again,
When
he's
is this
more like
election, by the way?
Pretty soon, I believe.
Okay.
Pretty soon, I believe. But anyhow, Zoran has been closing in on him. Now, I do just want to add this tidbit for people who are not aware. So Zoran, he has been very vocal for the pro-Palestinian protest and activists and stuff like that. So he supported all that. He supported, the students that were protesting at Columbia University. I will say this, though, when he was asked recently whether or not Israel has a right to exist, he said it did. Mm-hmm. So just FYI, people, like, just giving you a heads up of that. That's why I say he's, somewhat agrees with some of those progressive policies, but he's not like crazy insane, right?
Yeah.
Or not insane, but he's not like, how can I put it? He's not willing to go, but so far, like he's not willing to say, no, Israel should not be there. And here's the reason why. Right. So he kind of strikes me as an AOC type character. And I'm trying to sound the alarm to people about this, in particular on social media. What's interesting about this, though, is now that he is closing in that gap, he posted this on social media. I couldn't vote for Bernie Sanders in 2016 because I wasn't a citizen yet, but I can't wait for my first presidential vote to be for him in 2020. So this was him, and there was him and Nina Turner. During the Bernie campaign in 2020. So he posted this October 19th of 2019. The reason why I'm sharing this is because it is very obvious that with an endorsement from Bernie Sanders and AOC, that gap between him and Andrew Cuomo would get even closer, and he may even surpass Andrew Cuomo in the polls. Right. But AOC and Bernie Sanders have not endorsed in this race at all. Now, AOC is in New York. You would think she would give something, right? So people are calling them out on social media, and they're saying, again, I say to those, if you still believe in this process of trying to reform the Democratic Party, to me, it does not make any sense why AOC or Bernie Sanders have not endorsed this guy when he supports and is advocating for the same progressive issues that they are, except for the fact is, if I had to make a guess, they don't want to get involved because, again, AOC has become more and more a part of the establishment.
Right.
So I wanted to get your perspective about this. This is a guy who said he was excited to vote for Bernie in 2020. And here he is, the progressive in the race in New York City. And Bernie and AOC won't even give him an endorsement.
I can only assume they want Cuomo to win. Right. I mean, and this is wild to me. Right. I remember Sanders when he was I believe it was 2020, I believe. I think it was the 2020 race, or 2024. I don't remember which race. But it was the race with Elizabeth Warren when she was running also. And all of the other moderates, conservative Democrats get out the race, endorse Joe Biden after Obama makes all these phone calls. Elizabeth Warren stays in the race and takes every opportunity to attack Bernie Sanders. And Sanders, there's this article where they were like, he was stunned by this and he didn't understand why she wouldn't give him support. Missing the fact that Warren had signed a letter for Hillary Clinton going back, I think it was like 2012 or something, that she wouldn't get in the race because Hillary Clinton was concerned about political opposition taking place in the Senate, specifically about Warren getting in the race. She thought Warren would be basically be able to gut her chances of taking the race. So Warren had a relationship with the Clintons going back for like a decade. Sanders apparently didn't know that and felt some kind of way about it. Okay, fast forward. We're in New York. Cuomo can't keep his hands off of women, can't keep his mouth from saying insane stuff about women. Got all of those grandmas killed in the nursing home, like 50,000, hid the fact that he got all of them killed, dodged up the numbers in doing so, and then accepted an Emmy and would make these press briefings about how he knows better than the scientists, how he knows more about this other stuff. Had to give the Emmy back, by the way. The book, of course, was nonsense because he hit the number, meaning that's the character of the person who's running for this, which means New York, you've lost your mind. There's that. And maybe they just want somebody who's competent. I don't know. But the idea that you're letting that cretin back into political power is astonishing. Two, the idea that this guy is a workers' lefty, from my understanding. Like I just saw the UAW come out and give vocal support for him in that race.
Yep.
And all right, so you have the workers movement saying, yes, this is the guy we want. This guy is not going to shrink from the task of backing workers in this situation. And you would think that if you have to deal with this kind of corporate Democrat who's basically a Republican, and you got somebody who seems to be advocating for workers' rights. I mean, they went so far as to say Cuomo never even came out for anything that they were effectively doing and was putting on things that were effectively taking away money out of the hands of workers. Where's Bernie? That is a fascinating question. Where's AOC? And I don't say this necessarily for everybody, but if you're having a state like New York and you have somebody like Cuomo who's running in the race, what would be your disincentive from doing it, especially if you're AOC and you're in New York? Meaning Sanders could say, well, look, I'm in Vermont. You know,
Right.
Okay, that's thin.
Right.
That's still thin, but okay. AOC is in New York. What is her excuse? I don't get it.
It's
I don't
like
get
that time she endorsed Nina Turner like the night before.
Yep.
Like the night before the race or whatever. Yeah. And people are saying, well, she probably will later. But the point is, when you see
You
that
gotta do
it's
it
as
now.
close as it is, why would
Yeah.
you not do it now?
Yeah, you got to do it now. I mean, the notion that like doing the night before, it's like calling somebody 10 minutes before a party saying, hey, would you like to come to a party? It's happening right now. This is like an invite, disinvite, right? Like, I don't know what's her motivation. And as you point out, AOC in the very beginning, when she used to talk about Gaza, she used to be very aggressive on the issue of Gaza before she got into the Congress. After she got into Congress, oh, she shut up about that in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. She became a creature of Mama Bear. And she is ensconced into the machinery of the Democratic Party. People forget when AOC got in, she was like, we need to primary some folks. And the DCCC even went so far as to pass rulings that would say, if you primary one of the Democrats, you will not get money and support. You will be blacklisted from all of these entities and everything else that effectively work with the DCCC. Now, that apparently didn't apply to moderate conservative Democrats, but it applied to lefties. And people like her and many of those lefties would have never gotten elected if that rule was in place. So, meaning that is what she came in as. Is that really who she is now?
Right.
I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see it.
Mm-mm.
This woke
No.
stuff is taking over everything else. And, no, please.
No, I was curious to hear your perspective about that, because to me it was pretty interesting. Like a number of
What do you think
people
the
are
motivation
calling
is? I am curious about it. Like, what do you
just
think her motivation is on this? Or even Sanders?
political career.
Yeah.
Political career. She's trying to walk in the middle. She's trying to have some cred on the progressive side, but also have some trust on the establishment side, right? So, because she wants to have a political career, even though she said she didn't care if she would be a one-term congressperson, it's very clear she wants to have a political career. So she's trying to play both sides. Just like earlier today, she tweeted, anti-Semitism is on the rise. No, it's not.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Like,
No, it's not. People have an irrational response to a state that calls itself a Jewish state. Despite the fact that plenty of Jews, especially in America, are against that nonsense that those Zionists are effectively doing. And there is a difference between Jewish and Zionists, just to be very clear. I guess my point is they're responding to the murder of hundreds of thousands of people and burning babies alive, or setting up these dodgy food places and then opening fire on the people when they go and get food. It's a rational response. Now, I don't know what these, that fire thing, that seems dodgy to me, but anti-Semitism is not on the rise, or at the very least, not on the rise out of some magical process.
nope, it's a establishment talking point at this point. Jamal,
Yep.
thank you so much for your time. Tell everybody where they can find you and when they can watch you.
I am on YouTube under Jamal Thomas. I have a morning show, Jamal Thomas Morning Show, from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And so you are more than happy to join us. We have a damn good crowd with us. I think I have 2,000 people live this morning. Well, yesterday morning. Well, for me, it's yesterday. But yesterday. And so we have really good crowds that come. The audience is fantastic. All of those people are bright. All of those people are witty and everything else. They tend to be committed. So yeah, join the family. 7 a.m., 10 a.m., Monday through Friday, Eastern Time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamal.
Glad to be here. Thank you for this. You have a good one, okay?
You too. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Jamal Thomas. He's awesome. Definitely check out his show. He's killing it. Like I said, I have a lot of respect for anybody that can do a live morning show and have all that energy first thing early in the morning. He's been doing a great job. Tonight's theme, ladies and gentlemen, is we must demand more. And we'll get into that as well. Even when it comes to this war with Russia and Ukraine, right? Like we keep saying in the war in Ukraine, like let's just call for, peace. We need to demand to end all the wars, not to have any wars, right? So we're going to get into that a little bit more about how we can demand more as we get into these other stories. First and foremost, I do want to make sure I give a shout out to everyone that's a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much. You're killing it, fam. You're killing it. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators. There's also a group called Sabsters. I think they're kind of cool too. Don't forget about those Sabbies. They're doing their thing. And of course, we also have members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen. We're going to give a shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Max Roy. I like that name, Max Roy. Maxie. All right. Thank you so much. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our next story. We have a couple comments that we want to get to first, and then we'll get to the next story. Shout out to Roger for the super chat. Cuomo also tried to shield nursing homes from the lawsuits. That's right. He did. That's right. Roger remembers. Shout out to Miranda Rios for being a member for 4 months. Jasmine says that I'm from NYC and Cuomo has the real estate lobby. I think he will win. Fire says Russia has been fully holding back this entire time since 2022 and before. Shout out to Luke says, I love this show. Thank you, Luke. And Janet asks a question. Sabby, are you a Black Italian? I am not. That's funny. I was debating with a friend about your last name. It could be your husband's last name, of course, but we have been fussing all day. I say yes. No, I'm not a Black. I'm just Black. That's a funny question, though. No, that's my married name, but that's funny. I've heard it all, man. I've heard it all. Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next story, ladies and gentlemen. If you have not done so, go ahead and smash the like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're getting back to it, man. Getting back to it. This next story, I think is going to show you a little bit about the Black misleadership class, but this time in particular in the Democratic Party and the failures that have come from that. We're going to dive into these segments here with Hakeem Jeffries and Jim Clyburn. Now, for those who are not aware, Jim Clyburn just had his fish fry in South Carolina, and there's a lot of politics that's going on around that. Hakeem Jeffries just had an interview with Dana Bash on CNN where she actually did pressure him. I was surprised that she did this, but the question is around, why isn't the Democratic Party doing more? Why aren't you, Hakeem Jeffries, as a leader of the party, why aren't you doing more? If you say that you are, what are you trying to do? So the 2 Black misleadership class characters from the Democratic Party tonight, Hakeem Jeffries and Jim Clyburn. Hakeem Jeffries, again, as I've said before, is a puppet. He is there to do more for Israel. He's very clear about, how close he is with AIPAC, and he said Israel was like the 6th borough if he could make it anything. That's really his assignment. His assignment is not to really try to help anybody in his district. It's not to do anything more than really that. Now, of course, Hakeem Jeffries is Black. So for Black voters, they can say, look, there's someone that looks like you, vote for the Black guy, even though he's not assigned to help Black people at all. But the Democratic Party has been, I guess, trying to find a way to recruit more young support since they lost young voters, to get more Black voters back into the party because they lost Black voters this past presidential election. And Hakeem Jeffries is put in the hot seat here about what are they going to do.
Mr. Leader, you brought up polls, so let me tell you about a new one that just came out here at CNN this morning. It shows that only 19% of Americans say that your party can get things done. 36 say the same about Republicans. And just 16% say your party has strong leaders. It's pretty rough, and you are one of them.
And that's a slap in the face to Hakeem Jeffries because he is one of the leaders. But look at these numbers, ladies and gentlemen. Only 19% believe that Democrats can get things done. Only 16% believe that the Democratic Party has strong leaders. But also, if you look at the numbers on the Republican side, I wouldn't say this is great either. 36% can get things done. 40% believe that the Republican Party has strong leaders. But the point is, with everything that has happened so far under Donald Trump's administration, the Democratic Party polling should be higher. The reason that it's not is because I think I'm starting to see for the first time in my adult life that more people are starting to realize that the Democrats aren't really trying to fight. They're not really trying to fight back against Donald Trump. And especially now, when you look at even like the Gaza situation, people are seeing, oh, both of these parties support what Israel is doing. Whoa, what is happening here? Russia and Ukraine, people are starting to see, oh, both of these parties are giving weapons and money to Ukraine. What is happening here, right? So there are things that the Democratic Party could be doing, but they're not trying to because, like, again, the goal isn't necessarily to win. The goal is to fundraise. It's all about the money, and that's what they're looking towards. But imagine being Hakeem Jeffries and sitting in that hot seat, and these numbers are presented to you. Let's see how Hakeem chooses to respond.
And you are one of those leaders. How do you turn that around?
Yeah, we don't have the presidency right now, so that's always going to be challenging a few months after a presidential election. But we have to continue to make the case, one, that Democrats, of course, are the party that is determined to make life more affordable for everyone.
Let's go back. I'm sorry. We have to go back to the way that he started this conversation, right? Because he's bringing this back to the presidency.
Leaders, how do you turn that around?
Yeah, we don't have the presidency right now, so that's always going to be challenging a few months after a presidential election. But
So let's go ahead and debunk this part right here, right? Yeah, obviously a Republican is in the White House right now, but the point is when you did have the presidency and you had the House, Democrats held the lead in the House. You didn't really try to get, aside from that infrastructure bill and the child tax credit, which you guys cut short. You didn't get anything. You didn't even pass the minimum wage increase. And there were Democrats that voted against that in the Senate, by the way. It wasn't just the Republicans that voted against it. So the point is, number one, this is not just about the presidency. Who passes legislation? Congress. We need to go over the three branches of government here. Congress are the ones that pass legislation. I don't know how many times people need to explain this, right? So you didn't pass things that were really going to transform the lives of the American people. And that's how someone like Donald Trump was able to come back in and win again. And now we get it. No, you don't have the White House, but there are other things that you could be doing, but you're not going in. And in many ways, you sound a lot like the Republicans, especially when it comes to foreign policy. It should have never gotten to this point. Should have never gotten to that point. There's a reason why you lost young voters. There's a reason why you lost Black voters. There's a reason why you lost men. And until the Democratic Party is willing to actually sit down and hear those things and say they want to change, nothing is going to change. Because who they really work for are their donors. So as long as the donors tell them, don't pass this piece of legislation, not to mention you have lobby interest groups that also write legislation. And Hakeem Jeffries and Jim Clyburn and all the so-called leaders of the Democratic Party, the reality is they are not willing to go against their donors. Now, he's not going to tell Dana that. And Dana's not going to tell you that, even though she already knows as well.
We have to continue to make the case, one, that Democrats, of course, are the party that is determined to make life more affordable for everyday Americans, for hardworking American taxpayers, that we believe that we need to lower the high cost of living, which for decades has been going up while the size of the middle class has been going down. So understandably, there's real frustration amongst the American people. They should be frustrated.
But they're
Housing
frustrated
costs are
with
too
you
high.
as well,
Child
with
care costs-
Democrats as well.
They're
I was surprised she said that. So Dana says that they're frustrated with you as well.
Of course, they're frustrated with the system.
No, well, you're a part of the system. You back the system. You support the system. Your donors support the system. So when I say like we need to demand more, I mean things like this. When Biden was in office and there was the push for the $15 minimum wage, as I've shown you, if you look at the out of reach housing report, $15 an hour is not enough to live off of in this country. And a lot of adults, you guys take a look around next time, okay? Because things have definitely changed where you're seeing more people working minimum wage jobs that are adults, not teenagers. And for the people who say, well, those jobs are only supposed to be for teenagers, well, no, because someone has to manage McDonald's. Someone has to be a manager. The teenagers aren't going to be managers. And then also people have to work during the day at these businesses as well when the kids are in school. So no, the jobs are not just for teenagers. So I've noticed that a lot of these places I've been going to that pay minimum wage, I'm noticing like it's a lot of adults working those jobs. It's a lot of adults that are the cashier. I go to the convenience store. There's a woman in her 70s that's a cashier at the convenience store that I go to. Why she got to work? You see what I mean? So this is a big part of the problem. So when you ask for the $15 minimum wage, and we talking about meeting the moment, when the Democrats were asking for that, they were already behind. $15 an hour is not good. That's not going to cut it. We passed that in Massachusetts years ago. That's how far behind they are. So if it's about making things better for the American people, they're not doing that either. Neither party is doing it. And that's how you get this pendulum swinging back and forth. That's how you go from an Obama to a Trump, then to a Biden, then back to Trump again. Because people's economic needs are not being met. Here's another part of this interview I thought was interesting.
In terms of how we will respond to what Trump and the administration has endeavored to do, we will make that decision in a time, place, and manner of our choosing, but the response will be continuous and it will meet the moment that is required.
They don't have a plan, guys. They don't have a plan. You see this? Oh, we'll meet that moment at the time and place of choosing. That means they ain't picked no place, they ain't picked no time because they don't have a plan. They're just going with the flow. And in some ways, too, they can't push back on Donald Trump because they share some of the same donors. That's the other part that's problematic.
What exactly does that mean? Have you not decided how to respond?
We've publicly responded in a variety of different ways. We haven't let our foot off the gas pedal in terms of additional things that may take place with respect to our congressional oversight authority and capacity. We will respond in a time, place, and manner of our choosing if this continues to happen. In terms of
Guys, this is not good. Again, he's supposed to be one of the leaders. He's the minority speaker of the House. He's supposed to be one of the leaders. They don't have a plan. Cloudness said they're on the non-plan plan. There you go. They don't know. They don't know what to do. They don't know what, they tried to come up with this seminar of how to like recruit men. And they thought it would be a good idea to have a female do that it's an absolute disaster. But when you look at who their donors are, I said, I'll leave this here. Then you understand why. You understand why. This is why you hear him talk more about Israel than other issues, other real economic issues, right? He's from New York. What is he doing for his constituents in New York? He gets over $1.6 million from AIPAC. That's what Hakeem Jeffries was put there to do. He's not there to really solve any economic issues or try to make any real transformative change. He's there to be a puppet. You can see it even with the statement here. Like I said, he's always very vocal. Two things, Hakeem Jeffries is going to be vocal about. He's going to be vocal if it has anything to do with Israel, and he'll be vocal if he's trying to counteract the Republican Party. Other than that, he don't really offer anything. He's window dressing, okay? That's what Hakeem is. So he put out a statement here about the Boulder attack, right? My statement on the anti-Semitic attack in Boulder, Colorado. The Jewish community in America has once again become the target of horrific anti-Semitic attack as residents of Boulder gathered on the eve of holiday of Shabbat to raise awareness for the hostages still being held captive in Gaza. The peacefulness of their assembly was shattered. And he goes on, yada, yada, yada. Like I said, you can count on him and Richie Torres to do two things there, and that's to stand up for Israel, right? Okay. But when you look at who's paying him, when you see where the money is it's all connected. You have no credibility. I think someone should run against Hakeem Jeffries. I think they should run against him as an independent, and I think they need to blow him out of the water. Send him packing. That's what I think. Because this guy was a fraud. He was a fraud from day one. They convince you he's going to help out people, and particularly he's going to help out you New Yorkers, working class people, and he's going to look out for them. He's just a suit, an empty suit. That's it. Puppet. They have no plan. And you can tell that they have no plan when we talk about the Black Miss Leadership class, when we pivot over to Jim Clyburn. So he just had his fish fry in South Carolina, and I used to live in South Carolina, and I can tell you a number of people told me the fish is dry. And I'll tell you, make your own fish. You ain't got to go there to his fish fry just so you can see all these different politicians, et cetera, and this gathering or whatever. His day's coming too, where the days of Jim Clyburn being able to have the energy and the pull that he did is also starting to wither, because you'll see this situation that they're running into as well. South Carolina's first in the nation primary status looks fraught as Dems sour on Biden. The Palmetto dinner and Representative Jim Clyburn fish fry have drawn rising stars who are eyeing the Democratic nomination. So again, here's Jim Clyburn here. So what's happening? So one of the things that the Democratic Party is debating is whether or not they want to hold on to South Carolina as an early primary state. Now, this decision to me never really made any sense in the first damn place. Biden was the one who changed it, I guess, to try to help them with re-election presidential campaign, and they still lost because South Carolina is a red state. I live there. I know it's red. But the reason why they target it, I think, is because it has the oldest electorate and also because of a large Black population. Now, there's other states that you could look at for that. You could look at Georgia. You could look at Maryland. You could look at, you know what I mean? There's other states, but South Carolina, older electorate, Black people in South Carolina tend to be a little bit more conservative. I can tell you that from my experience there. So it doesn't mean that they vote Republican, but they'll vote Democrat because of some of the social issues. But even on certain things, they still tend to be a little bit more conservative. So the reason with that, I think, is that the Democratic Party is trying to keep like that moderate energy, that moderate base, and have that be the center of the Democratic Party. So they feel like, oh, South Carolina's, a perfect place. And then we can prove that, look how well it worked out for Joe Biden. And then we can continue to go from there. The problem that they've run into now is that some people have now decided that they don't know if it's a good idea for the Democratic Party to keep South Carolina as an early primary state because it attaches them to Joe Biden and they're trying to move forward and not backward. Let's go ahead and get into this part here. And we all know how Jim Clyburn came in to, help Joe Biden, how he came in and everything changed after that, right? Right. So we'll jump to this part here. Biden's return to the national spotlight through negative coverage detailing how those in his inner circle shielded the president's deteriorating condition around the world from outside the world has only resurfaced some long-held misgivings about his legacy. All this talk about Biden and what should have and what could have What might have is a bunch of BS that comes from Trav Robertson, a longtime Democratic operative and former chair of the party. We can peck that to death if you want to, but that is in the past. South Carolina represents going into the future. South Carolina, a state where Black Democrats make up a substantial portion of primary voters, played a pivotal role resurrecting Biden's moribund campaign. When Clyburn threw his support behind Biden ahead of the South Carolina in 2020, it vaulted him to the nomination and the ladder. So this part here, but that electoral situation was tenuous. By running for re-election, Biden sapped energy out of the 2024 primary. Now party officials are bracing for its status as the kickoff state to be ripped away. I think it would be a mistake to act like South Carolina's place at the top is just because of Biden, when this has been a conversation we've been having for 20 years. That's coming from Nick Soto, who is an attorney and executive director of South Carolina House of Democrats. So what you see happening here, folks, is that some people in the Democratic Party, they're not sure if it's a good idea to keep South Carolina as the first state in the primary because of its attachment to Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was the one who made it to be so. Now, I feel this way. First of all, I never agreed with these first and early primary states. I think everybody should, all these states with primaries should be on the same day or the same week. I don't think it should be this state goes first, that state goes on Super Tuesday and all this kind of stuff. Ideally, it's supposed to encourage some type of momentum for said candidate, but I never really agreed with it. To me, I thought it was just a waste of time. And now you see that even Jim Clyburn is his state, and he co-signed it. He agreed with South Carolina becoming the early primary state. You see there's friction here, even within the Democratic Party. Long story short, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. And the Black misleadership class in the Democratic Party, people like Hakeem Jeffries and Jim Clyburn, are not good leaders. Now, somebody needs to say it. They're not good leaders. We can look back and we can disagree with the way that Obama turned out. But one thing that Obama was able to do, and apparently still has been doing behind the scenes, is calling shots, leading in some way, shape, or form. Hakeem Jeffries just did an interview. He couldn't even really tell you what the plan is, when it is, what time, if they choose to do anything, because they don't have a plan. And the Democratic Party has bad leadership. And I'm sorry, but all of us at some point have had a job and we had a review, whether it was a 90-day review, whether it's the annual review, which will determine whether or not you get a raise or how much of a raise that you get. Management has reviews too. And sometimes when the leadership is not doing a good job and they're not a good leader, they're demoted or they're removed. And I don't understand how this will be any different when we look at the political system. You can't just keep somebody in a spot just because they're there. So let's just let it ride out. But that goes back to us needing to demand more. Because what you'll see they're doing right now, and they'll go ahead and add Wes Moore to this Black misleadership class as well, because they are already trying to push him in that way. Right? Wes Moore, the guy who vetoed the reparations bill in Maryland, this guy right here, they're trying to push him to run for president. So like they're handpicking people to be leaders that are not good leaders. And when you're not a good leader, you need to go. So this is Jim Clyburn, Wes Moore, and Tim Waltz at Jim Clyburn's Fish Fry. Listen to this.
I know I'm not running. But the thing I'm also very clear about is, anyone who's talking about 2028 is not taking 2025 very seriously. We are watching direct assaults on our communities, direct assaults on our neighbors, direct assaults on our legacies. That's taking place right now.
This is the time. This is the time when people are going to learn that you are not just going to attack us and attack our future and attack our children and think we're going to take it.
So let me tell you about Wes Moore. You know why he's there? So he said he's not running in 2028. We'll see. But he says he's not running. So people are like, well, why is he there? I think this is his way of trying to get back more support from Black people after vetoing that reparations bill. Because let me tell you something, the streets have been talking about that. It was not just those of us in independent media. The streets have been talking about that. It's not just Black people in Maryland. It's also Black people in other states too, okay? So I think this is Wes Moore like, let me get out there and help Clyburn and them and go to the fish fry and da-da-da-da. You looking for something else. You looking for some form of leadership. That's why you're there. Same thing with Tim Walz. He's there because they looking to do something else. You think they're just there because they want to be nice?
We fight back. We mobilize. We march. We push. We get results, and we win.
Well, that is Maryland Governor Wes Moore speaking Friday in South Carolina at Congressman Jim Clyburn's world-famous fish fry.
I don't know why they call it world famous. I'm telling you guys, when I lived there, I know people that went to this fish fry and they said the fish is dry. So that's just crazy. But this is it, guys. See how they handpick people? So they handpicked Jim Clyburn. They handpicked Hakeem Jeffries. Now they're handpicking Wes Moore. They handpick who they want their puppets to be. Anyone getting the amount of attention that they're giving to Wes Moore. Don't forget, Barack Obama said he wanted there to be a primary, and he wanted the people that he wanted the ticket to be was Gretchen Whitmer and Wes Moore. He was already handpicked. He's another puppet. All of them.
And the man my next guest says is the 2028 Democratic candidate that no one's talking about. Though now you are. Journalist and MSNBC political analyst Alexi McCammon is joining me now. Good to see you. Your latest piece on Substack, The Myth of the Political Savior, Why Democrats Keep Falling for the Same Fantasy and What It's Costing Us. Wow, let's get into that because you heard him say that he's not running in 2028. But what is the significance of him showing up at this event in South Carolina?
Yeah, Alex, thank you for having me. And, you know, frankly, it's a smart thing for him to answer that he's not running because he's showing that he's focused on not just the present moment, but of course, being governor and governing for the people in this moment. But a lot of folks should be talking about Wes Moore as a potential 2028 candidate in part because of that, because he is someone who has this substance and has been a servant to his country in many different ways. He's a military vet. He formerly ran the Robin Hood Foundation. He's a Harvard grad. He's a public servant through and through. But
pause. So you see what they're starting to do, right? Because they want to make him or Hakeem, either one of them, they want to make them the next Barack Obama. Harvard graduate. Does this sound familiar to you? You see the people they keep pushing in front of your face? The Harvard graduate, military vet. She's like, oh, he has substance. I don't really give a damn. I don't care that you went to Harvard. I don't care. I really don't. That doesn't make me say, oh, I should vote for that person because they went to Harvard. No, it really doesn't. In fact, when you look at a lot of the presidents that we've had in this country, most of them went to some type of Ivy League school. So that's not a woo for me anymore. We had a black guy who was president that went to Harvard. And how'd that turn out? His name was Barack Obama. That's what you would get with the Wes Moore. That's what you would get with the Hakeem Jeffries. See, they just repeat the same thing over and over. So it is 2025. It's not 2028. We haven't even gotten to midterms. And they're already telling you who you should support. This is how it works. And it's always people from the Black misleadership class, the people who say, you got to take the issues that impact the Black community and put them at the bottom or take them off the list. And we'll do all this other stuff first. Let's focus on things like democracy from a party that's a corporation. We got to focus on our constitutional rights for a party that wants to silence people. Anything so that you're not focusing on real economic issues and real issues that impact the Black community. So they want you to elect a Black person, but they don't want you to elect a Black person that actually wants to do something for the Black community. That's how it works. Let me let her finish.
He's not someone who wants to sort of oversaturate the airwaves or make everything about himself. What's also interesting about him showing up to that event, though, is that there were some Democrats who wanted to disinvite him from that dinner altogether in South Carolina because he vetoed a bill in Maryland to give reparations to folks in his state. And that's an interesting 2028 calculus, too, because, of course, he's a Democratic governor in a blue state where he could do something that progressive, but people might consider that too radical, and it could come back to haunt him in 2028 if he does run.
So let me explain something to you guys, right? So do you see what just happened, the conversation that just took place? So notice she mentioned the reparations bill. I told you it has made it to other states. Black people are talking in other states as well, not just Maryland. That's why he was there, to try to garner up more support again. He's not there because he wanted to just be nice and hang out with Jim Clyburn. These relationships in Congress are transactional. You know what I'm saying? So he may not be in Congress, he's a governor, but this is a transactional relationship. That's how DC works. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You come down here for me during this fish fry, and I'll make sure and help and get behind you if you run in 2028. And they're all in on it, right? So you see what she did? So the Black woman comes on here and she says, if he decides whether or not he wants to turn differently on reparations, some may consider that to be too radical. Does everybody see the game that corporate media plays? They always get someone that looks like you to tell you what you are owed might be too extreme or too radical. Corporate media.
Interesting. So look, Democrats could potentially have a pretty deep bench in the next presidential cycle. Shouldn't voters hear from other contenders like Governor Andy Beshear, Governor J.D. Pritzker, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Governor Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris? I mean, don't they all have something to say people should hear?
Absolutely, they do. And I think we're going to hear from a lot of them and then some. And you're already seeing a lot of those folks step out. I mean, we just saw Governor Tim Walz, as you showed in that video, with Governor Moore as well. But we see other people. Gavin Newsom has started his own podcast. Pete Buttigieg has gone across the airwaves. People are talking about Governor Gretchen Whitmer. You'll notice it's a lot of Democratic governors. And I think that's an interesting through line for people to consider too. Of course, big names like Pete Buttigieg are an exception to that, and they get a lot of attention because he's grown and built so much name recognition at this point. But governors in particular have proven to be really formidable candidates and kind of proven servants and lawmakers who get things done for the people in a way that folks who serve at the national level don't have that same view all the time.
Okay. What governor won presidency recently? I'll wait. You see, here's the thing, folks. Everything that she just said there towards the end, surefire way for Democrats to lose in 2028. Because people don't want more of the same. People want something different. I say we need to demand more because the reason how we end up with people like Hakeem Jeffries, Jim Clyburn, Wes Moore, Barack Obama is because they kind of were the people that they're Black, but they're not grassroots. They're corporatist. So we demand more by not supporting people that are corporate. We demand more by supporting the grassroots. And I think fundamentally, that's really where we need to go. And that's where we need to stay. As voters, all of you, not just Black people, I'm talking to all of you watching. I really do believe that we should not be supporting corporate candidates. We have to stick with the grassroots. And by the way, that doesn't even necessarily mean political. The grassroots does so many different things for people in the community, whether it's a grassroots organization, whether it's mutual aid, which those of us at RBN do. You see, once you start to see that detachment from the grassroots and said person, then you know they're not going to be in it for you. So we got to pay close attention to that. So we demand more by not supporting people that are corporate. We demand more by not supporting the people that typically are backed by the media. Usually the person that corporate media is backing is not the person you should support. I mean, they have the best interest. They have the best interest in mind for donors, right? That's why the media supports them. That's why they stick by them. But typically, if the media is promoting them, you probably shouldn't support that person. But all of these people, they're just a part of the Black misleadership class. And there's different generations, behind them, and different generations that will come in the future. And I'm just trying to alert people to this because Wes Moore is the next Hakeem Jeffries or Barack Obama. Hakeem Jeffries, if he keeps his seat, is the next Jim Clyburn at some point, and also maybe the next Barack Obama. They're lining people up. And one thing they all seem to have in common is that they all seem to have this undying support for Israel. That's how you know they ain't going to do nothing for you. We got to pay attention and we have to demand more. We really do. These are not leaders. These are not leaders. Malcolm X was a leader. Fred Hampton was a leader. MLK was a leader. Could have been more radical on some things, but still. The people that you see on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, these politicians that you see, they're not leaders. They're puppets. And I think you know who's pulling their strings. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. FM is funny. Kamala was in bed with Israel, literally. All right, let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, The Traveler. Hakeem Jeffries also takes money from SpaceX and some of the same groups that Trump accepted from too. So that's why he caved so quickly. It's really true. If you follow the money, you'll see. Thank you, Courtney. Make your own fish. Make your own potato salad at Clyburn Stale Fish Fry. Thank you, Mark. Demand number 3, a minimum standard of living for everyone. That's right. Thanks, storytelling. Get them Sabby. Also, you look like Cheryl Pepsi Riley when she was in Medea's class reunion. I bet you can sing like her too. I've been holding that in for 2 years. Ha ha. I cannot sing like her. I cannot sing like her. But that's funny. Thank you, Cougar Lady. Has the Black misleadership class talked about Larisha Thompson, who was killed by 6 illegal migrants in South Carolina while they were eating that dry fish? I sent a message to Jasmine C. I guess that's Jasmine Crockett. Not a word. That's a good question. Probably not. Probably not. Thank you, Justin. Green Party candidate governor in Maryland, Andy Ellis, is for reparations and challenging Wes Moore on this issue and more, but Greens only run for president, ? Right. Yeah, Andy's been on the show. Andy's been on the show, and I don't even know we don't know if Wes Moore is going to end up. I still think he might still run for president, but regardless, there is someone that's running that does have reparations on their platform. Something to think about. Kate, 66% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. They work 2 to 3 jobs over 6 to 7 days. This is true. They pay rent and skip meals so their kids can eat. Yeah, and I know people in my family that have done that. They wouldn't eat so their kids could eat. All right. Let's go to part 2 of Type VNC, and we are going on to the next story. If you guys haven't done so, smash the like. Thank you. Moving on. Let's get to this crazy story in Boulder, Colorado. So there is more information about the suspect that apparently threw Molotov cocktails at protesters in Boulder, Colorado. Now, I'm going to show you this video of him first, and then we're going to get into some of the things that have been revealed about him. Before we do that, though, I have to say this. Don't you guys find it somewhat suspicious that these attacks are happening now? Don't you think it's rather strange that the genocide in Gaza has been happening since October 2023? And now it's 2025 after the poll was released that the majority of Americans no longer support Israel. Now these attacks are starting to happen. I find it rather suspicious. Let's get into this video here. So this is the suspect here.
We're here, brother. We're here. We can't do nothing about that. We can't do nothing. We can. Not here. You have to end Zionists. Not here, bro. You're not.
People taking video right now. He was wearing an orange suit with like something on his back.
Spraying alcohol.
Spraying alcohol, but what he did was he made it look like he was here.
He's making Molotov cocktails. And for us. Well, we can't do it when he's got Molotov cocktails on. If you are fighting, you have to. That's what he's got right here. Is Molotov cocktails. Get back.
Okay. Now, when I first saw this video, the first thing I said to myself is, looks like a drunk guy. Reminds me of one of the dudes that I would have seen walk in through 5 Points at night when I was in college. Looks like a drunk guy. Like, I didn't know what to make of it at first. Now, apparently there was some type of a protest that was happening here for the hostages that are in Gaza, right? For the Israeli hostages in Gaza. How convenient. I also find it convenient that he just happens to be Egyptian. I also found it convenient that his name just happened to be Muhammad. You know, because I sit back and I think about these things and I'm like, after the other incident that we covered, and it was Latino man from Chicago, I think it's like they sat back and realized, whoa, a lot of people are not falling for this. No, a lot of people did, you know. So now it's like, we got to go a little step further here. Now the suspect has to be someone who's named Muhammad, who's from the Middle East. Oh, and add to it, by the way, now they're confirming that he was also here illegally. Oh, what a triple whammy. Doesn't this all seem convenient? They also said that he was saying like Zionists are a problem, And I noticed now with corporate media, now they've changed their vocabulary. So now corporate media was like, oh my God, he said that the Zionists got to go. So you see what they're going to try to do? They're going to try to say that being against Zionism is anti-Semitic. Watch. Like, I just don't believe any of this stuff. Like, I really don't. And who knows, I could be wrong, but I don't know. I just really don't. I find it convenient. None of this was happening in the end of 2023, 2024. It is not until after the poll is released that Israel has lost support from the American people that all of a sudden these attacks seem to happen back to back, out of nowhere. You got everybody out there. Even AOC is tweeting anti-Semitism is on the rise in America. No, it's not. All of these people are lying to you. The numbers don't show that at all. And no one wants to look up the numbers. So you have Jake Tapper here, Mr. Liar in Chief, who lied throughout the entire Biden administration that Biden was doing well, wrote a book about it and is making money off the book. This man shouldn't even be in the news anymore. I don't even understand how you get to still sit in that chair since you've been lying all this time. He's eating this up. By the way, both corporate media outlets are eating this up. Fox News is eating it up and CNN is eating it up. Listen to this.
The latest act of horrific anti-Semitic terrorism in the U.S. In Boulder, Colorado, yesterday, an Egyptian national in the U.S. illegally has been charged with 16 counts of attempted murder, plus a federal hate crime charge. Police say that the man used...
So now all of a sudden it goes from the person said free Palestine That was with the DC incident. To the person said they wanted to kill all Zionists. Do you guys see don't you find that very strange? It's like almost like they're trying to hit on all fronts, right? They said he's been planning this for a year. Really? To throw bottles?
Prokopis is in Boulder, Colorado. The suspect just appeared in court. Shimon, tell us what happened.
Yeah, Jake, it was a very quick appearance. This is his initial appearance where he made this appearance before court. He did it from jail, so he didn't even have to physically come to the courthouse. But he's in on a $10 million bail, so there's no chance that he's going to get out. And he's going to be back in court on Thursday here in Colorado, where they're going to officially file those several charges against him for this horrific attack.
The suspect also faces a federal hate crime charge?
Yeah, there is, and that is a very significant charge against him, that federal hate crime charge. He could potentially face more charges from the Department of Justice, but that was also filed today. So you have the state charges now, and then you also now have this federal hate crime, and the FBI and DOJ are continuing to investigate those acts as well. So they're working together with the Boulder police as this investigation continues, Jake.
So let me just add something here. I really do feel like this is a way to put fear into protesters, making people feel like they shouldn't protest or they can't protest. I also feel like this is a way to send a message to those that have been, critical of Israel. I just, all of these things just go through my mind because, like I said, I don't feel like this is a coincidence. I feel like someone else is behind this. I don't feel like these two attacks just happen to happen this close together and it just is what it is. The genocide is started in October of 2023, but these attacks didn't start until after the poll was released that Americans are pulling away from supporting Israel. So I question the timing of it. Wouldn't be surprised if this is some type of MK Ultra. I don't know, but I would not be surprised at all. It's just suspicious.
What happens next? What's the next step, Shimon?
So the next step will be for him to appear in federal court on that hate crime. Generally what will happen is perhaps maybe the state case will go first. But the thing right now is about the victims. Two of the victims, Jake, remain in the hospital. There are several other victims who were released from the hospital. There's that 80-something-year-old Holocaust survivor, very significant, a pillar, a woman of this community that everyone knows, who is such a strength to this community. She was injured. Her daughter was seriously injured as well. And everyone that I have talked to in this community today, this is the woman that everyone talks about because she is here. She's been walking in these walks every week, and to have her attacked in this way has really shaken many of the people. On Sunday, Jake, here in Boulder, there's supposed to be an Israeli festival, so we're going to see an intense amount of security as law enforcement prepares for that festival, Jake.
So let me chime in here for just a second. Do you remember the three Palestinian guys that were shot in Burlington, Vermont? Remember that? Notice you didn't see wall-to-wall corporate media coverage about that. Right? It was mentioned, but they weren't talking about it as much as they're talking about these, right? Remember that? Remember the 6-year-old Muslim boy that was killed by his landlord? Where was that same type of energy? Because you see, Jake Tapper is a part of this as well. Jake Tapper, Dana Bash. Jake Tapper is still spreading lies about beheaded babies on October 7th. He's still repeating that lie. They all work for the same power structure. They're all a part of this lie that is being told. They're all in on it. So I just found it very convenient. And you'll see here when we get to the Fox News segment, because I want to show you that both sides are discussing it in this way. Listen to this.
We have some new details. Federal authorities releasing the charges for the man accused of setting 8 people on fire in that targeted terror attack in Boulder, Colorado. Officials say he's now being charged with a hate crime that's federally. And this is what they found. They found at least 14 unlit Molotov cocktails on his person, along with that makeshift flamethrower. The Molotovs comprised of glass wine carafe bottles or ball jars containing clear liquid and red rags hanging out of the bottles. He made these himself. In fact, it says that he researched on YouTube how to do this. And later, during an interview with the officials, the suspect stated outright, and he's talking, he stated he wanted to, quote, kill all Zionist people and wished they were all dead.
So does everybody see what's happening now? Now the word Zionist is going to be an issue. So just a couple of weeks ago, it was the phrase free Palestine, what they said was anti-Semitic. Now it's going to be Zionism is going to be the problematic thing. And before you know it, you won't be able to say anything to criticize Israel altogether. Now, thankfully, there are quite a bit of you that watch me that are not falling for this BS. Appreciate you, fam. Most people that I know I've spoken to in real life are not falling for this BS. It's very suspicious. It just, the timing of all of this, adding it all up, right? But what they are trying to do is they are trying to make Israel and Israelis look like the most oppressed people in the world right now. And in order for them to do that, they believe if they continue to have these incidents, however they came about, if they continue to have these incidents where it looks as though there are attacks on people that are Israeli or are Jewish or support Israel, whatever, then they'll be able to say, aha, look, everybody, we told you that there was increased anti-Semitism in the United States. When the numbers and the data don't show that at all. That's the plan. So they believe that out of this chaos, there will become more sympathy for Israel. There are people who believe that. There are people who believe that out of chaos will come peace. So I'm glad that you guys are not falling for this mess. But I'm just paying attention to the vocabulary that they've been using over the past couple of weeks and how they're changing the words that they use. We've moved from free Palestine now to Zionism. What's going to be the next word or phrase?
He also stated that he would do it again. Emily, he also said during this interview, he specifically targeted the Zionist group that had gathered in Boulder. He knew they planned to meet that day, Sunday at 1 p.m. He arrived at 12:55 and waited for them.
I love that he also said that he's been planning this attack for over a year, but he wanted to wait until his daughter graduated because he gets to make that choice. But what about the choice of the Jewish victims who don't get to make a choice when they are attacked or don't get to make a choice if they die, which, by the way, they're with an attempt to murder, then the hate crime charge brings a life imprisonment sentence, which I hope he gets. This is.
Where is this same type of energy and passion when Black people are killed and attacked? And don't get me started on CNN either, because CNN, you guys, you'll pander to it, or you'll do it as a political, a political thing for you. CNN, you'll talk about it in a way that makes it political and say, see, this is why the Republicans are so bad. Vote for the Democratic Party. Fox News, you'll talk about it in such a, well, maybe they shouldn't have been resisting. Oh, maybe they shouldn't have been there. Oh, geez, gods, or that's not how they actually died at all. Either way, it's very clear that both of these media outlets, there is one group that they prioritize. Everybody seeing the connection now. Where was that same passion? You don't have it, right? People are talking about like hate and anger and all these types of things. Where is this same passion towards Klansmen that still exists? Where's the same passion towards neo-Nazis that still exists when they kill and hurt Black people? Where's the same passion? Because see, you have to be careful about the news, and you have to be careful about newspapers, because they would have you believe these things don't happen anymore. That's a damn lie. And there are many people that can tell you that still live in the South, that live in those sundown towns, and let you know the Klan is still very much alive in this country. Some of them wear suits. Sometimes they're doctors, sometimes they're lawyers, sometimes they're judges. but still very well alive. You never see that type of passion there. They have that type of passion for supremacists. What Israel has become is a supremacist state. And that's what both channels support, by the way. CNN and Fox News, they support it.
So foul. And he also said that he learned on YouTube how to make a Molotov cocktail. This is what is being fomented right now, that someone has the audacity, the ability, and the actionable information to Molotov cocktail and then flamethrow against peaceful Jewish citizens, and gets the luxury of doing so after his daughter graduates, after he drives across the country and builds his Molotov cocktail with gas at the gas station. This is absolutely unacceptable. We know that there are questions surrounding his identity, given that he's for some reason 21 on his identification. He shouldn't have been in this country, and now people are suffering for it horrifically, including a Holocaust survivor, as you pointed out earlier.
And you
Patently
mentioned
unacceptable.
You mentioned he planned this for more than a year.
Yeah.
So think about that. You know, he's given a work authorization. He overstayed a visa.
Okay, so again, it's interesting to me. You guys believe this guy planned this for over a year to throw bottles? Now we have to say this. We do not condone violence on this show, but I'm going to keep it real with you. I've seen more happen after the Red Sox have won the World Series in Boston. I'm not exaggerating. We've seen cars flipped, people climbing up poles, people jumping off of poles, all different types of stuff. I have seen more happen when the Red Sox have won the World Series. And I've seen them win the World Series here multiple times. But he planned this for a year. He planned for a year to throw bottles. You guys really believe that? Here's a sad part. Now you'll see back at CNN on this panel when they're talking about, now they're trying to say that even being present at the protest is a problem. Listen to this.
There are specific things that are being said on these campuses that are anti-Semitic. But the idea that AOC and, I don't know, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar are engaging in those activities, I'm not sure there's a lot of evidence of that.
They spoke on campuses.
You know what I mean?
They were there on those campuses.
But I guess, but here's what I'm saying. But do you understand what I'm saying? If they show up on college campuses to protest, you know, what's the situation in Gaza, are you saying automatically the same thing as uttering anti-Semitic words?
Yes, they're anti-Semitic.
Does everybody see what's happening? So now we have gone from you're anti-Semitic if you say free Palestine. Now they're trying to claim that, to now having an issue with Zionism is also a problem. Now to the point of, if you were even at the protest, that was anti-Semitic. Does everybody see how far they're trying to take this? And let me tell you what I believe. Abby didn't say the word genocide. Did you notice that? She said the situation in Gaza. It was almost like she stumbled a little bit at first, right? So she probably already got her marching orders from her CNN bosses not to call it a genocide. I would not be surprised about that. But two, as you'll see with the rest of this conversation, I honestly don't believe that Abby has a problem with the protests or people attending the protest. I think she has no problem with that. But because of the job that she has and the position that she's in, she can only push back so far if she wants to keep that job. Isn't Abby, someone can look this up for me, Abby Phillips here. Isn't she from the islands? I forget. I think she's from the islands. But anyway, people from the islands, look, they know what Israel is doing. They know because they know what it was like when the British came into their communities. They know exactly what they're doing. So I don't think she has a problem with the protest or feels like it. That's why you see her saying, wait a minute, you can't say that it's this if they're just at the protest. And this guy is, and this is Chris Sanu, he's saying it is a problem, that even if you're there, it's a problem. Like I said, you do not see any of these people go to this same type of length when attacks are done to Black Americans in this country. You don't see it. I don't see them trying to condemn or trying to silence or disarm or disband the KKK. And they've been around for years. Where was that same type of energy? Someone told me, thank you. Thank you. Afro Trinidadian. Yeah, so she's from the island. So they know. That's what I'm trying to tell you. She knows. Let's finish here.
Mistake about it. Their words are absolutely, and this is all based in anti-Semitism.
Right, what I'm saying is, like, do you have evidence that they actually engaged in anti-Semitic language? That is the issue.
You know, I mean, supporting terrorists and some of her past. Are you saying? I mean, do we have to go through the statements?
I am talking about on college campuses. You know, because I think that there is a difference.
The history of protesting is very clear.
There's a history. There's a difference between protesting and saying and doing anti-Semitic things. Would you not agree?
Ilhan Omar's rhetoric as it pertains to Jewish people in the state of Israel is deplorable and disgusting. She shouldn't even be in Congress, in my opinion. And them showing up on those college campuses is a green light for the most vicious, disgusting, despicable rhetoric against Jewish students and against Jewish people. You can absolutely draw a correlation. And to pretend that they were on the college campuses and saying kumbaya is to just be naive.
So Michael Singleton was on this show. And I have already explained this to him before, that the majority of the protesters on campus were Jewish. I don't understand how Ilhan Omar and AOC, who, by the way, AOC in particular, she walked both sides of the aisle, okay? So I don't even know where she walked both sides of the aisle. Let's get her out of this conversation. But the reality is, you have white Republican and white Democrat politicians that have made comments about Black Americans that are very suspect, and I don't see people have this type of anger towards them. It is one group. But I explained this to Sher Michael. He knows this. Why are they bringing up Ilhan Omar and AOC? Okay. Both of them are in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party supports Israel. Why are you guys bringing these people up? All of this to distract you from what has happened to those people in Gaza. Everybody, all of a sudden, people in corporate media, they have more outrage over less than what? A handful of people who have been attacked here in the United States. And I question the origin of all this. They have more outrage for that than they do all those women and children that have been killed in Gaza. That's supremacy in action. And then you have people actively participating in it. Sure, Michael, I know you know better. I know you know better. And I know Abby knows better. Because you see how she started to push and say, no, there's a difference between a protest and having the language. This is where they are taking it, fam. We have entered into a new era in this country of McCarthyism. A new era of McCarthyism. And mark my words, this is not something that is going to help Israel. This will make things worse for Israel. This doesn't make people like you. This makes people want to be away from you. This makes people want to avoid you. This makes people want to have nothing to do with you. Because if people know they got to have all these damn rules, they got to walk on eggshells around you all the damn time. They may slip up and say something and it might hurt your feelings, or it's not something that you like. And the next thing they know, they're told they're being anti-Semitic. People are being hunted down, just like in the McCarthy era. This is not going to help you. This does not help Israel. This makes things worse for Israel because it makes people not want to fuck with you. And all these panels that you see on CNN, and they're debating all this. Well, the protest, well, the encampments, well, people said the same thing during the civil rights movement, goddammit. The peaceful protests. People had problems with We Shall Overcome. People had problems with the songs and the marches that Dr. King and other civil rights activists did. Now, some of you, I don't know. Because I look back and I think if we were back during that time, I think some of you honestly might have folded. I think some of you would have been on that side and say, well, don't use those words. Fuck that. People are fighting for their lives. People are fighting for their humanity. Civility is gone. That's what's frustrating about these panels. That's what's so frustrating. Look, I get it. People got families. People got to make a living. I get it. But at this point in time, none of you can sit on that panel and continue to play dumb. So we need to demand more. When we demand transparency, we mean real transparency, not that fake stuff that's happening with Kash Patel and all that mess. That's not real transparency. They covering and hiding and protecting for the deep state too, okay? There's literally a genocide going on, but they want you to focus on the few who have been attacked here instead of the larger number of people that have been killed in Gaza, people who have been starving. I sat there and I saw a video the other day where those kids were running to the truck and those IDF soldiers were shooting them down. So spare me your so-and-so walked on a campus and was at a protest. Spare me. This message here, I thought was interesting. This is from Stop the Bullocks Marable. She said, this man is not Muslim. This man is not called Muhammad. This man is an Israeli agent who has just perpetrated a false flag event in Boulder, Colorado. It is all theater, period. Come on, guys. I think we all know better. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, baby Ethernet. These clowns act while Israel commits war crimes. Exactly. Thank you, Anthony. Here comes thought legislation, indicative of future crimes or deliberate mischaracterization. I had a discussion with someone whether, say, the BX is burning was an epitaph. FYI, I survived that. Interesting. Thanks, Roger. She took shot at YouTube, a wink to government to destroy competitor. That part too. Thank you, Wandy. Some Muslim are Zionists too, FYI. That's a good point. Thanks, Roger. CIA wanted to stage bomb attack on Miami, blame Castro. AB Media says, Sabby Sabs, something is up with these attacks. I think this may be plotted by someone else. Oh, I think so too. DeAndre said, you don't find that suspicious, the Dr. Umar voice? You don't find that suspicious. Thank you for this, Wandy. There is zero payoff for Muhammad guy. Illogical. John L says, I feel like most Americans are checked out and not rallying behind these attacks. And Piano Man says, like the Glenn Greenwald incident. Exactly. Well, we're going to get to some crazy foolishness as well with this next story. Smash the like button if you haven't done so. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Check out this, guys. During Biden's administration, we went after Matt Miller quite a bit on the show. It was very obvious that he was lying to protect Israel and Israel's war crimes. Now, Matt Miller has the audacity to come forward in an interview and admit that Israel has, in fact, been committing war crimes. After all those times he told you that they weren't. Check it out. Check it out, fam.
Do you think what's going on in Gaza now is a genocide?
I don't think it's a genocide, but I think I think it is without a doubt true that Israel has committed war crimes.
You wouldn't have said that.
So they all got the memo. By the way, they all have the memo not to admit it's a genocide.
I don't think it's a genocide, but I think I think it is without a doubt true that Israel has committed war crimes.
You wouldn't have said that at the podium.
Yeah, look, because when you're at the podium, you're not expressing your personal opinion. You're expressing the conclusions of the United States government. The United States government had not concluded they've committed war crimes. Still have not concluded that.
Let's go back to that part. Pay close attention.
I think it is without a doubt true that Israel has committed war crimes.
You wouldn't have said that at the podium.
Yeah, look, because when you're at the podium, you're not expressing your personal opinion. You're expressing the conclusions of the United States government.
These people are actors, right? These people are actors. They're not there to tell you the truth. They're paid to act and perform. And that's what Matt Miller did. Now, he is telling you with his own mouth that he is not paid to give his opinion or his analysis. He is paid to tell you what the government told him to tell you. And people still trust these mohos. People still trust the State Department. This carries over into corporate media. When it comes to these affairs, particularly foreign policy, corporate media is discussing what the State Department allows them to discuss. They're discussing the memo that came over from the State Department. They're not telling you the truth. And he says this just outright. Had no shame, nothing. While this guy sat there for, almost 2 years, lying to you, telling you that Israel was not committing war crimes. We're going to show you back and forth so you'll see the comparison when you compare it to what he's saying now during this interview.
The United States government had not concluded they've committed war crimes. Still have not concluded that.
But your personal view is they have.
Back again. Sorry, one more time.
War crimes. Still have not concluded that.
The United States government, he says, still has not concluded that Israel is committing war crimes, but he went on to tell you that they are. So that also kind of debunks his previous statement where he said, well, my job isn't to, tell you my opinion. It's just to report what the State Department's saying. But he's still telling you the U.S. government right now has not admitted that Israel is committing war crimes, but he told you that they are. He was a paid actor. These people are actors.
But your personal view is they have.
And they
were while you were there.
But yes. But here, let me qualify that. There are two ways to think about the commission of war crimes. One is if the state has pursued a policy to deliberately committing war crimes or is acting reckless in a way that aids and abets war crimes, and that I think is an open question. I think what is almost certainly not an open question is that there have been individual incidents that have been war crimes where members of the Israeli military have committed war crimes. So ultimately, in almost every major conflict, including conflicts prosecuted by democracies, you will see individual members of the militaries commit war crimes. And the way you judge a democracy is whether they hold those people accountable.
But Israel hasn't.
That's my point.
Right.
Is we have not yet seen them hold sufficient numbers of the military accountable, and I think it's an open question whether they're going to.
It is not an open question whether they are going to. They're not going to. He already knows that. You guys see this? Like, this is what Sky News. This is the same guy that had journalists thrown out for asking a similar question to what this gentleman just asked him. He had Max Blumenthal thrown out. I mean, just a number of people thrown out. And we've shown it before, like those press conferences. So this guy's a paid liar. How do you sleep at night? What do you say to your family, right? What the hell do you say to your wife? What do you say to your kids? What the hell do you say to your family that, yeah, I lied for the entire Biden administration? What do you say? Because I'm pretty sure they see this as well.
struck that you think now that Israel did commit war crimes, and yet at the time, and I get why, but at the time you were at the podium and you couldn't say that. I mean, personally, that must be very difficult.
Well, so the State Department itself had concluded, not in these, they didn't phrase it in these terms, but I think I did at the podium a few times, had concluded that it was likely that Israel had committed war crimes. But I do think it's almost certain that they have.
Shout out to Drop Site News for gathering this. It was likely. Okay, let's see the before and after here. Let's look at some comparisons because I think that this is especially important. So I just want to give a shout out to Breakthrough News for putting all this together. Let's look at before and after. Lying ass Matt Miller.
You have this site where Hamas is hiding inside a school. Other militants are hiding inside a school. Those individuals are legitimate targets, but at the same time, they're embedded near civilians. Israel has a right to try and target those civilians. Gaza has been such a horrific situation for so long. It's not productive.
Everybody catch that?
To call on Israel to stand down on any one military tactic. The effect of that war was crushing. Crushing. To look at what was happening to children.
What was happening to children every day in that war. But when people said this in the press conference, he had them thrown out. When Max Blumenthal brought this up in the press conference, he had them thrown out. When Sam Husseini brought this up in the press conference in a very nice, polite way and was still seated while doing so, they dragged him out of the room. It's just, the Biden administration is going to go down in history as the administration of the exposed liars. And all these politicians lie. But the Biden administration is really, really going to go down because this is what the hell? Who are you people? How you get these jobs? Think about this for a second. There's no way, man. No way. This is absolutely horrendous. Now you want to go talk to Sky News, and now you want to tell the truth. He should be embarrassed, but he's not. Sorry, let's go back.
To look at what was happening to children every day in that war.
How is it to come that UN, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty, International Criminal Court can all find compelling evidence of war crimes by Israel, and the United States, with its enormous powers of intelligence and direct contact with Israel, can't find those things?
I would say that different organizations have different burdens, different responsibilities, and we take ours very seriously and are taking these assessments very seriously and want to finish them as soon as possible, but it's important that we get them right. Gaza
Robot.
has been such a horrific situation for so long.
Don't you think that's something that the State Department should consider launching an atrocity determination on, given that you've also said in your NSM report that it is possible that there may have been violations?
So we do have processes ongoing to look at whether there have been violations of international humanitarian law.
Is atrocity determination one of them?
I'm not going to speak to that in specific, but that's why the president says the answer to that question is uncertain, is because we don't know the answer. To look at what was happening to children every day in that war.
So despite these assessments, you think there is no change in the U.S. policy to continue providing arms to Israel?
There is no change in our policy. As you know, we've paused one shipment. We have not, but we have not changed our overall policy, and we will continue to support Israel's security. Gaza has been such a horrific situation for so long. We have always
The key part there is when he says for so long.
made clear that we are committed to the defense of Israel. We will continue to support the defense of Israel. I think it is without a doubt true that Israel has committed war crimes.
You wouldn't have said that at the podium.
Yeah, look, because when you're at the podium, you're not expressing your personal opinion. You're expressing the conclusions of the United States government. The United States government had not concluded that they've committed war crimes. Still have not concluded that.
But your personal view is they have.
And
they were while you were there.
But yes.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly why people don't trust the U.S. government. This is exactly why. When people say, again, we need to demand more. Here's one of the things I say. I think those positions should be voted on by the American people. I've been thinking about that for quite some time. Like, I don't even think the vice president should be chosen by the presidential candidate. I think the people should vote for who they want the vice president to be. I think people should vote for who they want the president's cabinet to be. Who knows? You may even get D's nuts in there. There was a guy that jokingly ran for president years ago called D's nuts. I don't know if everybody knows that. Running joke, we go with that. But anywho, it's just something to think about. Like, I never agreed with, I feel like if it's going to be a democracy, we should choose who's in that administration. We should choose who's in that cabinet. Nathan Robinson brought up a good point. He said, this despicable man spent the years he actually had power publicly denying that Israel was committing war crimes. And now that he's out of power, he says, oh yeah, of course, Israel is doing war crimes. Yeah, Nathan's 100% correct. That's exactly what Matt Miller did. That's what he did. And like I said before, like, I don't know, maybe these people just don't have a conscience. Maybe there's some type of blackmail on them and their family. I don't know, but I don't understand how you could sit up there and lie to those people, lie to the American people for years, knowing damn well that what you were saying was false. So I don't want to hear how you feel about the kids in Gaza now, Matt Miller, because you didn't give two shits about those kids in Gaza when you were standing at that podium. It's all connected to money, and we really do have to demand more. Crazy things, guys. New York Varsity said D's nuts polled at third place. Let's go to some of the other comments. Sorry. Thank you for the super chat, Bilal. Benjamin Franklin famously said, they who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Benjamin Franklin said a lot of things, didn't he? Didn't he? Bad Wolf says, my job isn't to tell you the truth. That's what he said. New York Varsity showed his whole ass. Exactly. Shout out to Jasmine for being a member for 18 months. My favorite liberal sneer is elections have consequences. Yeah, Biden's win sure did for his administration and Palestine. Yeah, they don't mention that part. Well said there. We have one more story for you, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, smash the like if you haven't done so. One more story, fam. Well, it appears that there is some good news on the horizon, particularly if you live in Seattle, in a certain district. There is a change that is coming. I was surprised by this. I did not picture this happening. I just didn't. But there is some news of a recent congressional announcement as an independent, and it's someone you know. Let's go ahead and bring this clip in here.
And Seattle politics is launching a new campaign. Today, Kshama Sawant announced that she filed to run for Congress. She is running for the 9th Congressional District. That seat is currently held by Democrat Adam Smith. Sawant served on the Seattle City Council from 2014 to 2024. According to the Federal Elections Commission document, her campaign is listed as an independent.
So Kshama Sawant, former Seattle city councilor. Don't forget that Kshama Sawant also started Worker Strike Back. She has decided to run for Congress as an independent. She is running against the Democrat in her district, who I guess apparently does sit in Congress, very corporate war-like. We're going to get into her announcement speech here, and then we're going to go through her list of demands. There's a couple of things that I do want to say. We're going to mention the pros and the cons, but I have to start off with this. I think Kshama is a fighter. Like, I felt like when people like AOC were running, I thought what we were getting was a Kshama Sawant, and that's not what we got. Maybe that's on me for assuming the best, but I thought that's what we were getting. She has been able to win on the local level in Seattle. She led the fight for 15 and they won. She's been able to fight back against the landlords and won. They've been able to fight back against Amazon and won. So she knows how to produce results. At the same time, when I did see the demands, I will say this. I think that we are at a pivotal point in this country, and I feel like the demands should be more aggressive. I feel like they should be over asking and not just asking for like the minimum at this point in time. We'll get into all of that, but let's dive into her announcement speech.
Instead, my Socialist City Council office went to war for working people to defeat the strenuous opposition from both big business and the Democratic Party, and again we won. When I first ran for the Seattle City Council in 2013, I campaigned on a $15 an hour minimum wage. It was dismissed as utopian at the time. I also ran on taxing the rich and on rent control. Unlike the Squad and other progressives, I kept my promises. Less than 6 months after my election, we won the nation's first major city $15 an hour minimum wage, a wage that is now the highest in the country at $20.76 an hour, because we also won inflation increases. It was after our victory here that the fight for 15 spread around the country. In 2020, we won the Amazon tax, which raises hundreds of millions of dollars annually from the city's wealthiest businesses to fund affordable housing. So yes, it is possible to defeat Amazon even on their home turf. We won a slew of renters' rights victories, including limits on previously exorbitant move-in fees, a $10 cap on late rent fees, a requirement of 6 months' notice for rent increases, economic evictions assistance forcing landlords to pay 3 months' rent to tenants forced to leave due to rent increases of 10% or more, a ban on evictions in winter months, and a ban on school year evictions of children and public school workers. These victories sent corporate landlords into an uproar. One of the city's real estate lobbyists, brother of recent Mayor Jenny Durkin, complained that every dollar spent on the Seattle City Council was being wasted because of Sawant's army. Sometimes your enemies give the best compliments. We won because we didn't put faith in the utterly failed strategy of trying to reform the Democratic or Republican Party or winning over these politicians through moral persuasion. The problem is that with rare exceptions, they have no morals. Even if a given politician started out with good intentions, the leadership of their party ensures they don't last long. Either the morals go or the politician does. After I left City Council undefeated in 4 elections to launch Worker Strike Back, Seattle Democrats have dedicated themselves to trying to undermine or overturn our working class victories in Seattle. Worker Strike Back has been able to defeat both their efforts so far. Last year when they attacked our historic minimum wage victory, and just last week when we forced them to back off on their attempt to attack renters' rights by first undermining the city's ethics laws. This showed once again that when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win.
See, I think this is the difference between, I will say this is the difference between Kshama Sawant and someone like the members of the Squad, right? Because if you were to compare her to AOC, the difference is Kshama has wins. She has a proven track record of being able to get shit done. Now, I know people are going to say, well, that's the city, that's the local level. And I get that and understand that too. But she still has a track record of winning. If you were to look at how effective members are in Congress, you'll see that when it comes to people like AOC and Ilhan Omar, et cetera, the data shows that they're not effective at passing legislation, right? So that's also part of the problem. I mean, yeah, they also want to remain within the Democrat circle and they want to have a political career. So they decide to sell out in that way. But they're also just not effective at getting legislation passed. So that's important for people to know.
When we fight, we win. Our fighting strategy is urgently needed nationally, including in the U.S. Congress. Progressive Democrats like AOC and Bernie Sanders have long since capitulated to the corporate and warmongering agenda of their party. Working people need elected representatives willing to use their positions to build mass movements in order to end the genocide and all U.S. military funding to the Israeli state, defeat the attacks on public funds for our basic needs, and win offensive demands like free healthcare for all, like by taxing the rich, or Medicare for all, and a $25 an hour minimum wage. This is why I launched Workers' Strike Back. This is also why I am running for Congress against Democrat Adam Smith. Just as I used my city council election campaigns to build momentum for the $15 minimum wage and the Amazon tax, I will use my congressional election campaign to help build the anti-war movement and to launch a historic fight for Medicare for all. And just as I did in my decade as a representative of working people in Seattle, if I'm elected to Congress, I will accept only the average worker's wage and donate the rest of my six-figure salary to workers and social justice movements.
Okay, this part right here is something that I wish more politicians would do, but they don't because they want that money. When she was city councilor in Seattle, that's what she did. She didn't take the full salary. She took a portion of it and donated the rest of it. I would like to see more people do that, especially those that can afford to do it, right? So that would be a big difference. That would make her stand out among the other Congress members, or among the ones that are say they're quote unquote progressive, that are basically sold out to the establishment. That would make her really stand out, because then people would say to AOC, hey, how come you not donating part of your salary? Things like that. Something to think about.
Contrary to the shocking and systematic underreporting in mainstream media, estimates from The Lancet indicate the Gaza death toll was likely over 335,000 by September last year and has likely since surpassed 400,000. At least 100 Gazan children are being injured or killed daily since Israel resumed its genocidal offensive in March. Gaza has been reduced to rubble. Neither the Democratic nor the Republican Party has a shred of moral credibility after having backed the Israeli state to the hilt. Both are fully responsible for what is in reality a new Holocaust. It would not have been possible without the billions of dollars they approved in funding from the US state. But we should not be surprised. Both Democrats and Republicans have been purveyors of endless brutal wars throughout their history. The Democrats and Republicans in the US Congress spent more than $14 trillion on war since 9/11. A third to one half of this money is pocketed by military contractors who in turn fund the campaigns of their favorite Democrats and Republicans. One such weapons industry treasure is my opponent in Washington's 9th Congressional District, Democrat Adam Smith, who has held this office since 1997 and who has blood all over his hands. Just days ago, on May 24th, Israeli forces bombarded the Gaza home of Dr. Hamdi al-Najjar and his wife, Dr. Alaa al-Najjar, both physicians at Nasser Medical Complex. At that time, pediatrician Dr. Alaa al-Najjar was on duty at the hospital, delivering care to injured Palestinian babies and children. And at that time, 9 of the couple's 10 children were killed and their sole surviving child was seriously injured. Dr. Hamdi al-Najjar was also gravely injured and died on Saturday. The blood of the al-Najjar family, along with the other 400,000 Palestinians, is on Adam Smith's hands. No politician who has supported this genocide deserves one more working class vote. Every single one of them deserves to be thrown out of office, starting with Adam Smith. Smith has never met a war that he didn't like. He has fully backed the genocide in Gaza. He has demonized anti-genocide activists as extremists and left-wing fascists, called for them to be arrested, and likened their actions to the far-right attack on the U.S. Capitol.
So another corporate Democrat, basically.
He holds the shameful distinction of being one of only 5 sitting Democratic Congress members who voted for the Iraq War in 2002. He supported the wars in Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yemen, and the current bloody inter-imperialist proxy war in Ukraine. For nearly 3 decades, Smith has been bankrolled by weapons industry profiteers such as Lockheed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Palantir, General Atomics, and Kymeta.
How the hell is this guy even winning in Washington state? Like, that's pretty blue state for the most part. And I'm listening to all of this and I'm like, they voted for someone who supported the Iraq war? And you heard the Palantir connection, right? Interesting.
In 2016, he was one of only 16 Democrats who voted against an amendment to block the transfer of cluster bombs, which are horrific weapons used for mass indiscriminate killing, to Saudi Arabia for use against the people of Yemen, something for which he has been handsomely rewarded by Textron, the leading manufacturer of cluster bombs. In 2021, as chair of the House Armed Services Committee, Smith proudly championed a grotesque $768 billion budget for the Pentagon, making it the largest military budget in U.S. history at the time, and $25 billion over even what President Biden was calling for. Far from being a foot soldier, Smith is a general among the war hawks. He has helped lead the financing of the ongoing genocide in Gaza as one of the most influential members still of the House Armed Services Committee. Smith is a darling of AIPAC and the Zionist lobby, the weapons industry, and the billionaire class. AIPAC was his biggest funder last year, and he has received nearly $500,000 from the Zionist lobby to date.
We want to fast forward just a little bit because it's a long speech, but I want to get to the part where she talks about her race. Okay.
The U.S. Chamber of Commerce to try and derail even meager improvements in healthcare under Obama. Smith voted in favor of the shameful bailouts of big banks in October 2008 while ordinary people were left to rot. He then supported continuing the funding for Wall Street under Obama. Smith's position is that the Democratic Party needs to move further rightward and become more friendly to big business, and that position has only hardened over time. In December last year, appearing with a Seattle-based Trump-supporting podcast host, he railed against what he called extreme left policies, quote, of the Democratic Party, claiming that that's what handed the election to Trump. This was at a time when, in fact, Biden and Harris were trying to out-Trump Trump. He sounds more like a Republican than a lot of Republicans, one right-winger commenter remarked. Smith has even received campaign donations from Elon Musk's SpaceX PAC, not once or twice, but in every election cycle since 2010.
See, I told you guys that these people, like Elon Musk, SpaceX, like Palantir, they're donating to both parties. So you have politicians on both sides that are taking money from the same people that they're complaining about, right?
It is exactly this lurch to the right by the Democratic Party that has allowed Republicans to increasingly attack workers, immigrants, the anti-war movement, trans people, the poor, and other oppressed people. We aren't going to stop right-wing attacks and defeat Trump by staying silent and allowing Democrats like Adam Smith to remain in power. We need to use every tool available to us. Mass protests, strike action, civil disobedience, and independent election campaigns like the one I am announcing here today to defeat warmongers and corporate politicians like Adam Smith. Support for Medicare for All is at historic highs. Quote-unquote progressive Democrats have been talking about single-payer healthcare or Medicare for All for decades, but every time there is potential to win it, they pull the plug. This is no accident. It is a cheap and easy talking point for progressive politicians like Pramila Jayapal to raise the flag for Medicare for All when the Republicans are in power, as right now, precisely because They know it won't go anywhere. In reality, this kind of empty lip service is a mechanism to deceive working people and try to keep them inside the Democratic Party. My independent socialist campaign for Congress will not only be committing to fight all out for Medicare for all in Washington, D.C., but I will also simultaneously build momentum for free health care through a Seattle ballot initiative. Worker Strike Back has just launched a national campaign called Free Healthcare Now, with the model of bypassing both political parties and fighting for free public health care paid for by taxing the rich through local ballot initiatives.
Let me pause here for a second. So it sounds like Kshama Sawant is going to be trying to get universal health care via ballot measure. I have no problem with that. I think people should try many ways that they can. And this also gives a shout out to ballot measures, because Washington State is a ballot initiative state. So they can do that. And this is one of the things I've been wanting people to do. And I know there's issues with funding and all that type of stuff, but that means that Kshama has been listening in some ways to for the ballot measures, like things that they can do on the local level. There are other ways to go about getting these things done.
In Seattle, we are preparing to file a ballot initiative in 2026, which would tax the city's wealthiest corporations approximately $5 billion a year, 5 billion with a B, $5 billion a year to fund free healthcare for everyone in this city. Are you excited? This would expand the Amazon tax that my city council office won in 2020 alongside working people and the Black Lives Matter movement. This is a fighting strategy to break through the current impasse. If we can win in one or more cities and states, it can act as a battering ram to win Medicare for all nationally. This is similar to the way Canada won its healthcare system by starting in a single province, Saskatchewan, before winning nationally.
Yep. She's right. That's what I think a lot of people don't realize, that Canada didn't implement universal health care in one big swoop. They started by province, and then it spread to other provinces to the point where everyone in Canada had it.
That fight also went hand in hand with the struggle for a new party of working people called Cooperative Commonwealth Federation. There is huge support for Medicare for all, as there is for most progressive policies, but year after year it goes nowhere because, as everyone knows, the Democrats, like Smith, and Republicans are owned lock, stock, and barrel by the health insurance industry, big pharma, and the billionaire class. And that's why, to win, we need to turn the tables on the parties of the billionaires. We need to build a militant, independent, all-out fight as we prepare the ground for a new party for working people. Working people are fed up with both parties of the billionaires. Under capitalism, it should be no surprise that those who own the vast majority of the planet's wealth also own the politicians. That's why I am a socialist, because we need a fundamentally different kind of society run by and for working people, not the billionaires. There is no reason in the wealthiest country in the world why everyone cannot have free health care. There is no reason that college should not be free. There is no reason that high quality affordable housing should not be available for all. But working people will not win free health care, a seat in the US Congress, or anything else without organizing in the millions. Our experience in Seattle shows that we can defeat the rich and their powerful political servants. I hope you'll join us in this fight. Go to kshamasawant.org to volunteer, donate, and get involved. Because when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. Solidarity.
Okay, so that's the announcement there from Kshama Sawant that she is running for Congress as an independent. Again, I think it was a big surprise to me. But yeah, I mean, she's done a lot with Worker Strike Back. She's done a lot with previous organization was Socialist Alternative, which I think turned into Workers Strike Back, and she's been able to get some wins on the local level. Now, I told you I was going to mention pros and cons, and there are some things that I do have to add that I think should be added to the demands. So let's see what was tweeted here. Kshama for Congress, Workers Strike Back members have voted overwhelmingly to back Kshama Sawant's working class anti-war, anti-genocide campaign for U.S. Congress. Help build strongest anti-war, anti-genocide campaign in the country. So these are the demands. And I looked on the website. This could change. I don't know. But right now, these are the demands. In the genocide in Gaza, no military aid, no occupation. Agree. Free health care for all, tax the rich. We're going to pause here for a second. So I agree with free health care for all, but I think when you say we're going to tax the rich to get free health care for all, I want to explain to you what that means in just a second. And then we need rent control, make corporate landlords pay. Okay, so the first one, 100% agree with. The second one, free healthcare for all, tax the rich. I would have phrased that differently, because when you say free healthcare for all, tax the rich, that gives people the impression that the only way that you can give everybody healthcare is by taxing rich people. The government already has that money. So for me, I would not put free healthcare for all, you're going to do it by taxing the rich. So I think it's more optics than anything. Like, I still approve of taxing the rich. I voted to do that here in Massachusetts, right? And you can use that money for, other things. But I'm just trying to get the point across, the message that it sends to people, that the big question that always comes up is how you're going to pay for it, right? And I feel like even Bernie didn't do the best job of explaining how they pay for it. But the reality is the government already has that money. Medicare for all is cheaper than the private healthcare industry that we have right now. But when you say free healthcare for all, tax the rich, that's going to send an impression to people that the only way you're going to be able to pay for that is by taxing rich people. And then people who are already skeptical will just say, well, see, they don't know how they're going to pay for it. They can't pay for it without rich people. So I would frame that differently. We need rent control, make corporate landlords pay. I would make that bolder. I would say housing for all. We need housing for all. What worried me a little bit when I looked at the demands, number one, I noticed same thing. And I'm telling you, I don't waver on this. And you guys been with me for a while. You know how I am. I don't see a Black agenda. And I'm going to keep it real. Adam, that Kshama is running against, he's the Democrat, right? So most of the Black voters are going to vote for the Democrat just because Democratic Party, or they're registered to vote Democrat, regardless who that candidate is. If they see, if you don't have a Black agenda, but he has one that's more like virtue signaling, because that's what the Democratic Party likes to do, like the virtue signal to Black people, they may ask, well, why would they not continue to support him? You see what I'm saying? For socialists, and I have to say this, when we talk about socialism, when we talk about a Black agenda, reparations is a part of that agenda. And if you are for the workers, then you have to know that there's a debt that is owed to descendants of slavery in this country. That's free labor. People weren't compensated. People weren't paid. So what worried me when I looked at the demands, and maybe this would change, but I feel like we're at a pivotal moment where we need to be bolder. We need to demand more, right? I keep hearing people talk about fight for 15. No, why are we fighting for 15? That's long gone, long gone. That was Bernie 2020. Why are we fighting for 15? The minimum wage, if you look at inflation and you adjust for inflation, right now, the minimum wage should be almost at $40 an hour. I kid you not. I'm not exaggerating. If you look up the data for inflation, cost of living, add all this stuff together, it should be at least $40 an hour. If we look at the Out of Reach report that I've shown on the show multiple times, it goes to show you people can't live off $15 an hour in the United States. So I feel like We need something bold. And I feel like we should be over asking instead of asking for the bare minimum. What I always tell you, always ask for more than what you want, because a lot of times you're only going to get part of that. So like if you want a minimum wage that's going to be $20, you probably need to ask for 40. If you want an actual $15 minimum wage, you probably got to ask for like $25, $30. Like I'm not kidding. You have to over ask. So I think the problem that I have, like, once again, is that I feel like it's just not bold. Like, I agree. Let me pull this back here. I agree with ending the genocide in Gaza, no military aid, no occupation, 100% agree. Free healthcare for all, I agree. We need rent control. I agree with rent control. But at this point right now, I'm seeing that what happened to housing for all? Like this is why I get it. Like, yes, we do need rent control, but I'm starting to feel like some of the demands that we've had over the years, I feel like they're starting to become watered down. One of the reasons why I voted for Jill Stein is not just because of the Gaza situation. I voted for Jill Stein because Jill Stein had a Black agenda. Jill Stein had reparations a part of her campaign. Not only just that, but Jill Stein addressed Cancer Alley and how to solve it. And the reality is, in order to beat the Democrat candidate, one group that they tend to get in particular is Black American voters. There aren't a lot of Black people in Seattle. So the few who are there and do vote, for the most part, are used to voting Democrat. There has to be something about you that you're offering to the Black community that the Democratic Party isn't trying to offer. And I just think at this point in time, I think we need to be bolder. Like, I'm sorry, but I love Kshama. I think she's great. I think she's, a great fighter and stuff like that. And maybe she will add more things. But I think 3 demands, in my opinion, is not enough. And I think we should be screaming to the rooftops right now with everything that's going on. We should be demanding more. We should be demanding free public college. Like, even some of the progressive candidates' campaigns, they have more demands than Kshama does for hers right now. So I'm a little bit confused. I just think it needs to be bolder. And I think that could really garner up more energy. But I'll tell you guys, like, when it comes to the Black community, remember the Democratic Party mainly has a lock on the Black vote. So if you're running outside of the two-party system, there has to be something about you that you're addressing that you actually want to fix or help with the Black community that the Democratic Party has been virtue signaling about and never did. I really do believe, and I've said this before, I want Black people to register as independents. I really do. But you have to also be offering something. You had to speak to the needs of said community. Now, some people will say, well, we don't want to, single out different groups and all that stuff. But we have been. We've been doing that. That's all electoral politics. We've been singling out different groups. It just seems like there's one group that's just seems to not get mentioned. So that's my thing. I think it should be bolder. And, I'll be happy to have this conversation with Kshama to explain to her, like, no, if you're a socialist and you're for, like, the workers and all that jazz, then reparations has to be a part of that discussion, because that is unpaid labor. And we talk about the land that has been stolen from Black people, which I just did a video about that. The land that was stolen from us, the homes that were taken from us. No, that's unpaid labor. I say the same thing for the indigenous community, and we talk about land back. So these things have to be discussed. That's my take on that. That's what I would say. Let's get to some of the comments here. Oh, my day said Eric's 11 demands. Yeah. And, I think Eric's 11 demands are fire. Like, I really do. And if a candidate had those demands, I'd be like, a grassroots candidate had those demands, they weren't taking corporate money, I'd be like, yeah. Like, but we got to be bolder nowadays. Like, at this point in time, we can't. But I have no problem having that conversation with Kshama. Like, I would explain to her, like, after looking at, if I'm comparing this to other congressional campaigns, I feel like it should be more than just 3 demands, and it needs to be bolder. Thank you for the super chat, Jasmine. Hope we have an independent wave in this country, one that comes from the working class. We need to be like Kshama. No one will fight for us but us. Thank you, Chris. Love the show. I appreciate the realness. Oh, thank you, Chris. Robbie said she lost the audience. You can't bring up Gaza first and not bring up Black issue. See, this is what I was, again, like Black people are not, we're happy to stay home. Like I'm telling you, we're not in a rush to go get in line to vote. Thank you, Justin. When I submitted amendments to the Fight the Rich campaign, Kshama and other Worker Strike Back members were against the inclusion of reparations, BDS movement, and worker co-ops. Will she get better in these? I think that's a conversation that needs to be had. I mean, I think that, again, if it's a socialist, like, I don't understand how you could be against those things. So I think there does need to be a discussion. Thank you, Sparky. Great work, Sabby. Keep on trucking. Thank you, Roger. Decommodified housing is supreme to rent control. That's interesting. Decommodified housing? Okay, Roger, we might have to talk about that. Might have to have a conversation about that. Thank you, Justin. These demands are the same ones that we voted on the second day of Worker Strike Back convention. I made this argument for reparations at the convention and they rejected it. Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to have a conversation with Kshama. Thank you, Roger. ORP or OORRP says Washington minimum wage should be $40.32 an hour. Seattle should be $51 an hour. Yeah, man. Thank you, Covert. Power concedes nothing without a demand. Nobody is owed your vote, regardless of who they are. Make demands. I agree with you, Rabbit. I agree. Yeah, it's like I said, like we need to demand more. Eric put this up here already. Again, 11 demands. Real change starts with demands. Healthcare for all, a minimum standard of living for everyone in the wars. That's another thing. Like, instead of us just saying, you know, in the genocide, in the war in Gaza, we need all the wars. We need in all of them, right? MCDS, money, corruption, demand solutions. Follow the money always. Call out the corruption relentlessly. Have robust demands. Dial them up to 11. Good demands lead to good solutions. Both major political parties are thoroughly corrupt and only serve the interest of billionaires and large corporations. Educating people about this difficult reality is a crucial first step. But what is step 2? The 11 demand strategy proposes the formation of a mass movement centered around a coherent, concise set of demands and the convergence of direct action, mutual aid, and electoral efforts to achieve a better world. Everyone knows that big money and corruption are running the show. It's time for the 99% to be clear about our demands and insist on real solutions. That's right. That's right. Eric, can you put the link to 11 demands in the chat? Yeah. All righty. And I think I got everybody. Did I get everyone? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Roger. If you embrace unions over worker co-ops, then you're not a socialist. Thank you for that, Roger. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, look, I think it's a good start, but I definitely think the demand should be bolder. And yeah, at this point in time, I say go all out. At this point in time, I say go all out. That's my take. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. Okay. Did I miss one? Oh, I did. I'm sorry. Thank you, JJ. Good evening, Sabby. Just off work, just tuning in. Welcome. Hello, JJ. I am actually about to head out, you guys. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. Thursday night is going to be pretty interesting. We're going to start off with a panel, a healthcare panel. And so there are going to be a couple of people coming on to discuss healthcare stories in the United States. And Jordan Sheraton is also going to be a part of that panel to give the Luigi Mangione factor of the discussion. So stay tuned for that. And then we'll also have news and we'll do call in on Thursday. I'm still working on the documentary, guys. We're making good progress. I'll let you know when I have something that I can actually, I don't know if I want to show people yet. But we're doing a really good job. Like I think, well, I say we, Scott's doing a really good job, and Eric and Corey have done a really great job. I'm not great with production, but they're doing a good job, and everything is coming together. So again, can't wait for that to be finished. That's it for me tonight, guys. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.